Jennifer Wheeler versus Thomas Baker.
Court will note that this matter is before the court on the evidentiary hearing on the defendant's motion to expand parenting time in this matter. And Mr. Bartel, are you ready to proceed?
I am, Your Honor.
Ms. McNiff, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Bartel, do you wish to make an opening statement or proceed to your proofs?
Your Honor, I'll just state where we're going with this. We filed the motion back in 2021. Your Honor had a hearing in which my client had supervised parenting time. I believe it was for 1 or 2 hours a week, in which at that time Bruce Sweet was the supervisor ordered by the court. Mr. Sweet had supervised parenting time with him on several occasions and recommended that he gets expanded parenting time to 6 hours per week. There was a stipulation by the parties that my client would get 6 hours per week, and it was also recommended by Mr. Sweet that my client be supervised by his mother, which occurred. My client has consistently been exercising his parenting time. We are asking for the court to lift the supervised portion of it to unsupervised and expand his parenting time. Currently, my client is receiving overnights every other weekend from Saturday at 9 a.m. until Sunday at 6 p.m., supervised by my client's mother or his grandmother. We believe in this matter. There is nothing, at least, unless it's hearsay or just mere conjecture, that would warrant my client to not get that unsupervised period of time. So that's all we're asking for in this matter, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. McNiff, do you wish to make an opening statement, reserve your opening statement, or waive your opening statement?
Your Honor, briefly, I would say that what Mr. Bartel has said is primarily right, although we will be presenting proofs today that Mr. Baker has had unsupervised parenting time, which was not authorized either by this court or by my client, and that he's been involved in a relationship that involved domestic violence in the last 12 months, in fact, in the last month, and that we believe that due to the fact that he has not curbed his violent tendencies or obtained any anger management counseling or tried to address the issues of domestic violence that he's perpetually had throughout a long time, that the children would not be safe alone with him. And we will be asking that his mom be removed as a supervisor for the reason that she has permitted him to have time with the children without her supervision.
Okay. Mr. Bartel, your first witness.
Yes, I'd call Thomas Baker.
Okay, sir, we'll have you raise your right hand, be sworn in, and then we'll proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Bartel.
All right. Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Thomas Jeffrey Baker.
Okay. And do you have any children?
Yes, I do. I have 5 children.
Okay. And I guess, could you name all your 5 children?
Jasmine, Braylee, Macy, Zoe, and Tessa.
Okay. And Jasmine, how old is Jasmine?
She is 15. She will be 16 on the 19th of this month.
Okay. And do you have parenting time with Jasmine?
I have full custody of Jasmine.
Okay. And how long have you had full custody of Jasmine?
Since she was 5.
And is that just full physical custody or also legal custody?
It's joint legal custody, full physical, joint legal.
Okay. And what is the parenting time, I guess?
Well, it's supposed to be her mother gets her every other weekend, but sometimes she doesn't get her.
And you said she's 15 years old?
Yes, sir.
And what grade is she in?
She is in the 9th grade.
Okay. And at what school?
Battle Creek Central.
Okay. And does she have any issues at school with regards to her grades?
There's a couple classes that she could do better in, but for the most part, she's a pretty good student.
Okay. But she's otherwise on track in the grade she's in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And have you ever had your parenting time suspended or limited with regards to Jasmine?
No,
Has there ever been any allegations that you have abused her, either physically or mentally?
nope.
And with regards to your other, I'm sorry, who is the mother of Jasmine?
Her name is Lindsay Wilson.
And do you and Lindsay Wilson otherwise co-parent with regards to Jasmine?
Yes, we communicate with each other on a regular basis and discuss her future.
Okay, are there any issues with regards, any major issues with regards to co-parenting with Jasmine's mother?
No,
And you indicated you had 4 other children. Who are who is the mother of those other 4 children?
Jennifer Wheeler is.
Okay. And what are the ages of the 4 children?
Braylee is 8. Macy is 6. Zoe is 4, and she will also be 5 on the 19th, the same as Jasmine. And Tessa is 3.
And what is your current parenting time with those 4 children?
As you said in the opening statement, I get them every Saturday from 9 a.m. to Sunday at 6 p.m.
Approximately how long has that been going on?
Several months now, since the last time we were in court.
Okay. Since about the end of November of
I believe-
2023?
I believe so.
Okay. And prior to that, what was your parenting time with the children?
Every 6 hours on Sunday, and we usually did 1 to 7.
1 to 7 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
And how long had that gone on for?
Over a year.
Okay. And prior to that, was there a different parenting time arrangement?
Only when we were seeing the kids with Bruce Sweet. Once we stopped seeing the kids with Bruce Sweet, it's always been the 6 hours on Sundays with my mom, and then just recently it was changed to the overnights.
Okay. And what was your parenting time prior to the last evidentiary hearing in December of 2021? When you were receiving overnights?
Prior to 2021, I didn't see my kids for almost a year.
Okay. And was there a time that I guess you did regularly see your children?
Before 2021, it was when I was living with them.
Okay. Now, I just want to get some background information. Where do you currently work?
I work at Faber Laser Manufacturing in Marshall.
Okay, and what do you do there?
I assemble small parts for other welding manufacturing companies.
And how long have you been there?
My year mark was January 6th, so I've been there 13 months.
And about how many hours per week do you work?
I usually work 36 to 44 hours a week.
Do you average 40 hours a week? Or is it different?
I usually average about 30, 38. Right now is a slow season right now, so there's not much work right now, but it's picking back up.
Okay. And how much do you earn per hour there?
I was making 23 an hour, and I just had my review last month, and I got a 50-cent raise. So I'm at
So you're
23.50 an hour.
And do you get any benefits at Faber Laser? What I mean, like medical?
No, it's a very small company. There's only 10 employees, so they don't offer health insurance.
Okay. And are you currently paying child support?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what the child support amount is per week?
I believe it's $368 and some change.
And is there an arrearage right now?
Yes, sir.
And approximately what is the arrearage?
I'm willing to guess it's close to 12,000.
Okay. Can you explain to the court why you have an arrearage of that amount?
During the first evidentiary hearing we had, I was only making $15 an hour, and the court set my child support to $23 an hour. So even at half my paycheck, it wasn't enough for the full amount. So I kept going into arrears every week, even as I was paying child support. I did go a span of 5 months, I believe, before the evidentiary hearing where I didn't have a job. So that kind of added to it as well. But even working now at $23 an hour, if I don't work a little bit of overtime every week, my check is literally half my check, and then I still owe her a few dollars after that because it's never the full amount.
Okay, so after that period of time where you were making 15 an hour and you had a period of time where you did not have a job, have you consistently made your child support payments?
When I wasn't working, I didn't, but since I've been employed, I have been making it regular payments.
Okay, so since you've been working with Faber Laser?
Actually, when I started working at $15 an hour, it was with Prairie Farms through a temp service. And then I went through a couple other jobs to try to get up to that 23 an hour. And then I finally found this place last January.
Let me re-ask the question.
Okay.
Since you were working with Faber Laser, you have consistently been making your child support payments?
Yes.
Okay, so it was the period prior to that that you had incurred your arrearages.
Yeah.
Okay. And now, where do you currently live?
I live with my mother at 66 North Union Street in Battle Creek.
And how many bedrooms are in that house?
4.
Okay. And how long have you been living there?
Since I moved out of Jennifer's house in
And what date was
2021. March 26, 2021.
Are you able to afford to move out of your mom's house?
No,
And why is that?
because I can't make enough money with half my child support or half my check being taken out for child support. I don't have enough to even afford rent. Like I barely make it by right now. I try to give my mom money for rent to stay here, but some weeks I can't because I don't make enough money.
Now, with regards to your children, you had indicated that you were reviewing overnights every other weekend.
Yep.
I guess, can you describe how do you get the children?
Me and my mother drive in her van all the way to Coldwater to pick them up. We get there just before 9. They come out, they give us hugs, we get in the van, and we drive back to my house, to my mom's house.
Okay. And so plaintiff lives in Coldwater,
Yes, sir.
and approximately how long of a drive is that for you and your mother?
It's about 45 miles one way.
And you're doing all of the driving for the pickup and drop off?
Yes, sir.
So when you get your children, do you spend all the time with them?
If I'm not working, yes.
Okay.
There are
Are
some
there
Saturdays. There are some Saturdays where I have to work a small shift of 5 hours, and it's usually from 10 to 3. But it's not every Saturday that I work.
Okay, so not often.
Not often, no. I usually spend most of my time here with them.
Okay. And I guess who prepares their meals?
I make their breakfast and lunch, and my mother makes the dinner, but I serve them and clean up after them for every meal.
Okay. And who does their laundry?
I do mostly. My mom has helped me in the past when we are running late or something, she'll help me out.
So since you have such a short period of time with your children, can you explain to the court why you're doing laundry?
I have all my own clothes here for them. So whenever they get here, I get them out of their clothes that they came in and I wash them and dry them. So that way, when we take them back the next day, they have their same clothes that they came in, clean and ready to go.
So you do have clothes there for all of your 4 children?
Yes, sir.
And do you ensure that the children are bathed?
Yes, sir. I bathe them every week and they come over.
Okay. And who puts the children to bed?
I do.
Okay. Is there any other ritual, such as reading or anything else that you do with the children before they go to bed?
Yes, we do read stories from time to time. Most of the times they like to sit down and watch a movie. Their favorite is Finding Nemo.
Do the children, are they bonded with you from your perspective?
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain to the court why you think they are bonded with you?
Well, for starters, when I do go to pick them up, they rush out of the house and basically lunge at me to give me a hug and tell me how much they miss me. And then on the drive home, they don't want to get out of the vehicle. We have to coax them into getting out of the vehicle because they don't want to go home. They want to stay with me. I feel like that should show that there's a pretty good bond between us.
When you say go home, you mean back to plaintiff's residence?
Yes, back to Coldwater.
And you have issues getting the children out of the car to go back to plaintiff?
Yes.
Are any of the children worse than the other ones, I guess, with regards to trying to get them out of the vehicle?
Yeah, Macy, my 6-year-old, it's pretty hard for her. She's usually in tears most of the car ride home. If not, she's sleeping. But when she gets home, she refuses, and we have to, you know, coax her into doing it and tell her that it'll be okay. We'll see you guys, in a couple weekends. And then we try to tell them what we have planned for them. Like, well, next time you come over, we're going to have a birthday party for, Jasmine and Zoe. So.
Well, how long does it take you to get Macy out of the car?
It differs each visit, but I would say at least a couple minutes each time.
And do the children come to you if they have any issues?
Yep.
Okay. And can you describe to the court what type of issues they come to you with?
Yeah, when they're playing together and they all of a sudden don't get along to where one child's being mean to the other one, they'll come get me and explain the situation.
Okay. Do the children ever confide, and I don't want you to say what they're saying, but do they ever confide in you? Whether it's secrets or just concerns that they have going on in their life?
Yeah.
Okay. So they feel comfortable with you to have conversations with you about private matters?
Yep.
And you had mentioned that the children hug you when they first see you and they don't want to get out of the car on the way back. Are they otherwise affectionate with you?
All the time.
Okay.
They
Can
tell
you
me how much they love me. They tell me I'm the best dad in the world.
And are they otherwise affectionate, though, otherwise hugging and whatever at your home?
Yep.
Okay. Have the children ever been sick on your parenting time that you recall?
Yes. Just a couple weekends ago, Macy, my 6-year-old, she was sick. Not so
Okay.
much to where she was throwing up, but she did say her stomach and her head hurt and she was really tired a lot. So I monitored her temperature and I gave her children's Tylenol to help with the headaches and the stomach aches.
And were you able to care for her?
Yes.
Okay. And with your job, do you have the ability to take time off if you need to for family emergencies or if the children are sick?
Yes, my boss is very understanding and she knows that I am a single parent and she understands the situations that I'm dealing with right now. And we don't have a attendance policy at work or anything. We just, if we miss some time, we have the opportunity to come in on the weekends and make that up.
So if your parenting time is expanded in the future, you would be able to take time off and care for them otherwise
Yes, sir.
in emergencies. Okay. Now, with regards to anything with their homework, is any homework ever sent by plaintiff with the children?
No, sir.
Okay. So you haven't had the opportunity to try to do homework with them?
No.
Do you ever do any educational programs or games or anything else with them like that?
We have a few games that involve education, like we have the letters game where you have to make words with letters. We have numbers games. I do, like I said, I try to read with them, and like Braley and Macy, they're the 2 out of the 4 that know how to read. So I try to quiz them and say, hey, what's this say? You know?
Okay. And you routinely do that?
Yes.
Okay. With regards to school, have you been to any school functions?
No, I get told nothing about anything with school.
Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry. Yeah, that broke out.
I'm sorry. No, I don't get any information about school.
Can we pause for a moment? I just see that there's somebody else who's joined us and I don't know if this is a witness.
Yeah, this is our 8:30 arraignment. They're finished now. I'm just waiting for Mr. Sharon to join. Judge, do you want to address?
Yeah, why don't we, I'm sorry, but why don't we put everybody else back in the waiting room? We'll address that and then,
Okay. Bobby.
Do we have time for a bathroom break?
yes, we'll take 10 minutes.
Jennifer Wheeler versus Thomas Baker.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Excuse me, I'm so
just-
sorry. May I inquire if there's somebody in the room with Mr. Baker? I thought I heard a voice.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Bartel.
Thank you. So I think where we left off was whether or not you've gone to school events for the minor children.
Correct.
Have you?
No. The only thing I've been invited to was they were in a after school activity for a dance program, and I was able to go see them perform.
And when was that?
Last summer.
Okay. Has plaintiff notified you of the children's, I guess, school schedule or extracurricular activity schedules?
No, she doesn't communicate with me at all.
Okay. And she has sole legal custody right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how do you discipline the children if you need to?
I talked to them, I sit them down and I explain to them what was wrong that they did. And then I give them a choice of whether they can say they're sorry to the other person or clean up the mess they made or whatever the situation may be, or take a timeout.
Okay. Do you ever hit the children?
No, sir.
Okay. Are you otherwise physical with the children?
No, sir.
Do you scream at the children?
No. There may have been a time here or there where they were being very loud and I had to raise my voice just so they could hear me, but I never straight out screamed or yelled at them.
How do you normally talk to the children?
With a soft voice, loving,
Do you love your children?
with all my heart.
Now, I understand you live with your mother. Could you describe to the court how often you involve your children with other family, grandparents, your other daughter, Jasmine, etc.?
Jasmine's usually here on the weekends that the other kids are here. I had that worked out with her mother to where They could all be together on the weekends. They're here. My kids do spend a lot of time with my mother and my stepfather. My grandmother sees us every Sunday, be at church or at home. I bring them to all our family get-togethers, Thanksgiving, Christmas, like all the holidays. They get to see all their family members on this side of the family.
You had mentioned church, so you take your children to church?
Yes, we attend regularly. This last couple Sundays we haven't gone because there's been sickness in the family, but we do try to go every Sunday.
Okay, what church do you belong to?
I attend Overflow Church in Battle Creek.
Okay. And how long have you belonged there?
I have been a member of that church since when me and Jennifer were together. She used to attend the church with us.
Okay. But you routinely take the children to church?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any programs related to church that they participate in?
They, other than just the nursery and the kids' classroom, they did a Christmas play for the month of December, which they all got on stage and performed and danced and sang in front of, all the church congregation.
Okay. Does it appear the children enjoy going to church with you?
Oh, they love it.
Okay. And they meet a lot of people at church?
Yep.
Are there other
Yeah,
children that go to that church?
Yeah, we have a very big number of children that go to Overflow Church.
I know you'd mentioned it before, that you feed the children. Do you buy them food?
Yes.
Okay. And do you buy them clothes and toys and other necessities?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you describe to the court the type of toys that they have at your place?
Well, it's mostly girly toys, but like they got Barbies, they got stuffed animals, they got a lot of activity games that take small pieces. We have some board games. They particularly like craft stuff, so we do a lot of arts and crafts here with them.
When you say arts and crafts, what type of arts and crafts are you talking about?
Well, we have we do paintings. My mom will buy some canvases to do paintings on. I got them hung all over my bedroom. They like to play with Legos. They like to we made Christmas ornaments and wreaths and window decorations.
And do your kids have sufficient clothes at your place?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Socks, underwear, pants, shorts, shirts, sweaters.
Yeah. And you get them new clothes if they grow out of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do your children have any special needs that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Has plaintiff ever notified you of the children's doctor's appointments?
No.
Has she ever notified you of any significant medical issues that are going on with the children?
No.
When is the last time she talked to you?
February of 2023.
And what did she say then?
Well, it was right after my breakup with Shelby. I was trying to reach out to her to talk to her about being civil and working together for the better interest of our children. And I got no text messages back from her. And I actually had the kids, and she came to pick them up because she was in town. And I tried to talk to her in person, and she said it's just best if we don't speak to each other. And I left it at that.
Did you take that to mean you guys should never speak to each other ever again?
That's what it seemed like to me.
Okay, so she's not willing to talk to you about the children with you.
To my knowledge, no.
Do you find out medical extracurricular activities or education, I guess, issues or things going on through the kids then?
Yeah.
So that's your source that you have to rely on now?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever get any information from your mother?
Um, Not really. She doesn't get that much information either from Jennifer.
How long have you been living? I'm sorry, I think you indicated before. How long have you been living in the home you're in right now?
Since March 26, 2021.
If your parenting time is expanded by this court and you're given unsupervised parenting time, would you continue to try to match up the parenting time with Jasmine so that
Yeah.
they can all stay together?
Yes, sir.
And how do your 4 children with plaintiff interact with Jasmine?
Oh, they love Jasmine. They can't wait to see her. Whenever she doesn't usually ride with us to pick them up, she usually stays home. So when we get home, the girls usually run upstairs to her room to say hi to her. They like playing games with her.
So they get along, they play together. There haven't been any significant issues.
No, I mean they're siblings, so they bicker with each other just from time to time, but that's normal in kids. But for the most part, they're very loving with each other.
Okay. And does Jasmine miss them when they are gone?
Yes.
Okay. And have your other 4 children with the plaintiff indicated they miss Jasmine when they're gone from Jasmine?
Yes. They tell me, they tell Jasmine, they tell my mom, they tell my grandma, they tell my stepdad that they miss us all very much every time we get them back. I missed you guys so much. That's what they tell us.
So I'm trying to focus on since the last order of the court. And when I say last order of the court, I mean the one back in December of 21. So we're talking about a little over 2 years. Has there been any physical abuse by you towards anyone?
There has been claims, but no.
When you say there's been claims, could you, I guess, expand on that for the court?
So I was dating a girl. Her name was Shelby Howard, and we got into an argument one day, and she attacked me, and she burned my face with a cigarette in multiple spots. I had red marks all over my neck from when she attacked me, and all I did was try to restrain her until she calmed down. My daughter Jasmine was there as a witness and reported the same thing I just said to the police when the police were called to my house after allegations of me choking her and threatening to kill her.
Okay. Were there any criminal charges against you?
No, sir.
Was there any personal protection orders entered against you?
No, I was told that she was trying to get a personal protection order on me recently, but I have called the court last week and they said my name's not even in their system.
Okay. Was there an indication to you a year ago when you filed a motion to actually strike that, Your Honor? With regards to Shelby, I guess from your perspective, could you describe, is there any mental health issues on her part?
Yes, she is on disability because I don't know what it says word for word on her paperwork, but she has told me that her brain age is not the same as her actual age, that her brain has not fully developed.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's one, hearsay, and two, it's a medical opinion that I don't think Mr. Baker is qualified to make.
Court will sustain that.
Has it been, from your perspective, has Shelby been up and down with regards to her mood and how she acts?
Extremely.
Okay. And can you describe that to the court?
1 second, she'll be completely cool with you and fine. And as soon as something happens that she doesn't like or doesn't agree with, she instantly becomes mean and outraged.
And you guys had gone back together again after
Yes, sir.
that? Okay, when
Yeah,
did
we
you get
didn't
back
talk.
together?
We didn't talk for 8 months, and we got back together on our anniversary date, which was August 5th.
Okay. And I guess who initiated getting back together?
I think it was equal parts. We both kind of realized that we weren't blocked on Facebook with each other anymore, so we kind of just both started talking again. And then before we realized it, it was our anniversary date, and we both decided to give it another shot.
Okay. And did you guys break up again?
Yes, we did.
And when was that?
January 6th
Of
of
2024?
24. Yes, sir.
And who broke up with whom?
She broke up with me.
Okay. And so that was about 6 weeks ago, 5.5 weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess even during that time when you got back together with her, was there any domestic violence by you towards her?
No, sir.
Okay. Have you been criminally charged with anything?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Has there been any personal protection order entered?
Again, to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Is it your understanding that there's been threats by plaintiff that there is?
Yes, sir.
Is it to your knowledge that she has threatened that even a year ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it a theme that plaintiff will threaten that there's going to be criminal charges or personal protection orders against you?
It would seem that way, yes.
Okay. And do you recognize that your relationship with Shelby is not, I guess, probably a good relationship to be into?
Objection leading.
Mr.
I can
Bartella?
restate it differently.
Okay.
I can
go
restate
ahead.
it differently. How would you describe how you view your relationship with Shelby in the future?
Non-existent.
And why is that?
Because both times that we have split up, the first time she was physically abusive, the second time she was mentally abusive towards me, and I told her the second time we got together that if things weren't going to change and they weren't going to change for the better, then it'd be best if we weren't together. And I love her. I love Shelby with all my heart, but I can be mature enough to say that we're not good for each other.
Okay. Do you have any physical health issues?
No, sir.
Okay, so there's no limitations on physically for you?
Nope.
Do you have any mental health issues?
I have anxiety.
Okay. Does it interfere with your ability to care for the children?
No, sir.
You're otherwise able to cook and clean, bathe them, etc. Everything that we went through before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, with regards to if the court is willing to expand your parenting time and lift unsupervised parenting time, are you willing to cooperate with plaintiff regarding any parenting time schedule?
Absolutely.
Okay, would you want that to happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do Do you ever criticize plaintiff in front of the minor children?
No, never.
And why? Do you think that would be appropriate?
No, it would not be appropriate to badmouth the other parent in front of the child. That's one of the
And
things
why
I
is that?
learned. Because it creates a false idea of who that person is to the child.
Okay. And I'm sorry I cut you off. You were starting to say you learned something regarding that.
Yeah, the bad mouthing the kids in front of, or bad mouthing the other parent in front of the kids is one of the things that we learned is a form of abuse in my men's healthy relationship classes that I'm taking.
Okay. And we'll get to that in a second, but okay. And will you, let me ask you differently. Do you encourage a relationship between the children and plaintiff?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And will you continue to encourage a good relationship between the children and their mother?
Yes, sir.
And why is that?
Because that's their mother. And at the end of the day, I have nothing but love for her and I wish her the best. And I ask the kids all the time if they're being good for their mom, if they're helping her. I have no malice.
And is there anything else that you do other than just inquiring about plaintiff and the children, doing things for her, that you do to encourage the relationship between the children and plaintiff?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, that was a lot there. Is there anything else that you do to encourage the relationship between your children and plaintiff?
No, in my current situation, there's not much that I can do.
Okay. Other than you do try to tell them to do what mother says?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you indicated that you're participating in healthy relations classes.
Yes, sir. As part of my probation, I have to attend 26 weeks of the men's healthy relationship classes.
Okay. Let me back up. So there were criminal charges against you last time you were before this court. Is that correct?
Yes.
So back in December of 2021, when I say before the court, I meant the last evidentiary hearing, which was in December of 2021, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what were the criminal charges that the court had heard about at that time?
There was 2 counts of felony child abuse and 1 count of domestic violence.
Okay. And did there come a point that you did plead guilty to a charge?
I did. I pled guilty to the misdemeanor of domestic violence. It was part of a plea agreement given to me by the prosecutor of Branch County in which he would remove the felony charges if I pled guilty to the misdemeanor.
And was that under the diversion program under MCL 769.4A?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have been on probation for how long?
A year and a half almost.
Okay. And have you been violated while you're on probation?
No, sir.
Okay. And have you had any issues while you're on probation? What I mean by that is, has the probation officer called you in and said, you're in trouble now because you're not doing what you're supposed to do?
No, the only issue I had was getting into the classes. It took a while to get into these classes, and the Branch County actually sent me a show cause hearing order for the not being in the classes, but I got on the classes before my court date, so they canceled it.
Okay. So you said these classes are 26 classes?
Yep, 26 weeks.
Okay. So how many classes do you have remaining?
Tomorrow will be my 20th class.
Okay. So you'll have 6 more after tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is your understanding that you have to do to be successfully discharged from probation?
I was told that I just have to pay my probation fines off and finish these classes successfully, and then I'd be off probation. I was supposed to be off probation on Halloween. That's when my year was up because I was only supposed to be on probation for a year, but because the classes and everything got started late, my probation's been extended.
Okay. And speaking of healthy relations classes, what have you learned?
Well, the men's healthy relationship class, they teaches us the many different forms of abuse and ways to avoid using said abuse. As far as like gaslighting and intimidation, using the children against the other party, physical abuse as well as mental abuse and emotional abuse. They teach us all the hidden signs that we may not see when we're in the mood or in the moment, and they teach us healthy steps to diffuse the situation.
Is there like active participation in these classes?
Oh yes, we do homework almost every week, and once she gives us the homework the next week when we go into class, we have to present that to the whole class, not just her.
Okay.
The class is about 8 people in it.
Okay. And could you, if you recall, indicate what homework you have done to the court, I guess, or at least one presentation that you have been involved in?
Oh yeah, so one of our homework assignments are it's called an action plan, and what that is they want you to think about something in your life or something about yourself that you would like to change, and then we write 5 to 6 detailed steps on how we plan to change that. And she's also told us that with these action plans, it helps us to teach ourselves goals for personal growth.
Okay, when you say she, who's she?
Her name is Julie Robert. She is the coordinator of the class, I would say.
And I guess circling back to the this last example that you've given, is there anything else that you can think with regard to that example that you presented, I guess, to the class?
Yeah, so like, I mean, I got all my homework if you'd like me to read you one of my action plans, if that would help.
Well, we can't read off things, so you have to go off your memory.
Okay.
If you need to refresh your memory, that I guess you would have to indicate that to us, and we have to go through a step.
No. So for the homework, the action plan, the last one I did was one thing I wanted to change about myself was to not react in an angry manner when something upsets me. And some of the detailed steps that I wrote on there was to take a moment to take a breath and think about my reaction before I give it. And remember, I'm not another one of my steps is I'm not the center of the universe, that things happen to other people that I don't know about. So to always go about with kindness is one of the key things. And then there's like 3 or 4 more on there, but yeah.
I guess it's hard with self-reflection sometimes, but I guess if you had to do it here, do you think you are improved since taking the healthy relationships classes?
I would say yes. There's been some issues at work and at home life every once in a while to where the older me would probably get upset and blow up about it. But after taking these classes and learning the steps that I've learned, I found myself to be a much calmer and collective person.
And you said these classes started back in about November of 23.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I guess I want to jump around just for a second here. It appears plaintiff is making a big deal about you and your mother had a blow up about 14 months ago, Christmas of 2022.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall back in December of 2022, you were trying to get, you were having parenting time with your children, and there was a disagreement with plaintiff and your mother about around that time period?
Yes, my mother received a message from Jennifer Wheeler stating that she knew that this would upset me, but she wasn't going to let us take the kids for Christmas, which was a Sunday for my visitation because of the weather. And me and my mother did get into a big disagreement about it, and we argued and stopped talking for several weeks, which I mean, I could have handled that situation differently, and had I been in my classes, I would have been able to handle it differently. But I take full blame for us having our disagreement, and we reconciled, and things have been great ever since.
Okay. And did anyone hit anyone when you had this disagreement?
No, there was no physicality to it at all. We might have gotten a little loud with each other, but out of frustration that happens, but nothing violent ever happened.
Okay. This wasn't in front of the children, correct?
No, it was not in front of the children.
Okay. And I guess to delve just a hair deeper in, just so we understand what this was about, plaintiff was not going to allow you to have parenting time because she said there was a snowstorm out there.
Yeah, there was a winter weather advisory that happened on Christmas Eve that year, and it was over at 7 p.m. that night. So Christmas morning, the roads were decent enough to where I could have went and got them, but I understand her worry for safety for the children with the roads being bad.
Okay. And looking back at it, you understand that there's different viewpoints as to I guess situations like this one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess did you leave a voicemail for plaintiff?
I did. When my mother told me that we weren't going to be able to get them because we had planned this for weeks because it was going to be our first Christmas together after mine and Jennifer's breakup. Um, excuse me. When I got that message, it did upset me. So I called the police station and asked them, if I have a court order and I show up with the police, does she have to give me the kids? And he said yes. So I called her to tell her that, so to kind of maybe put some sense into her head, I guess, to allow me to see the kids, which I understand now within my classes that was intimidation, and that was wrong to do so.
Okay. And did you like threaten her life or to beat her up or anything like that in the voicemail?
No, sir, I did not.
Okay. Did you just indicate what did you indicate the best you can recall?
I indicated that I wanted my kids for Christmas and that it was my court ordered day to have them, and that if I had to, I would show up with a police officer. But that's where me and my mother got the disagreement in, is because she didn't want to go over there with a police officer and upset the children.
Okay. And you understand where your mother's coming from now?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Okay. And you agree that may not be good for the kids to show up with the police regarding parenting time?
I agree.
Okay. And do you understand that the court would deal with any violations of the court orders?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Speaking of Christmas, let me ask you, did that upset you more? Let me ask it differently. Did plaintiff ever celebrate holidays?
When we first got together, she wasn't really the holiday type. She was more of a Scrooge. It was usually me that would initiate the holidays.
Okay. And did you miss the previous Christmas with your children?
Yes, I did.
Okay. When I say previous, that would have been 2021.
Yeah, I did not get to have them for Christmas, and I didn't even get to see them around Christmas.
Can you describe, I guess, the best that you can when the children are over at your place? What are all the things you do together?
Well, when the weather's nice, we like to play outside. We'll go to the park. When it's kind of wet or cold, we'll play inside and we'll play games here in the living room, or we'll play video games. They like to help cook. They like to, like I said, they like to do lots of crafts on top of going to church and everything like that.
And you're always engaged with them when you have your parenting time with them, other than the
Yes,
few
sir.
times you have to go work?
Yes, sir. 100%.
And has there been times, I guess, prior to the court ordering overnights back in November of 23, that plaintiff would provide overnights?
Yes, we had, I had given you a list, but we had quite a few overnights during the year of 2023.
And so that is all set up through your mother?
Yes, my mom and Jennifer set all that up.
And you recall if you recall, the last overnight that plaintiff had given with the minor children prior to the court ordering the overnights?
I would say the weekend before we went to court. Because they were staying over here so they could go to church to practice to be in the play that they put on.
If the court expands your parenting time and lists the restrictions, would you still encourage a close relationship between the minor children and plaintiff?
Yes, sir.
And why is that?
Well, like I said before, that's their mother, and that's the only mother they're going to have. So I don't want there to be any issues like that. I want them to have a good and loving memories with their mother. You know, I feel that both mother and father should have equal time with their children.
Okay. And do you do drugs or alcohol in front of the children?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you do illicit drugs at all?
I smoke marijuana here and there, but not
That's
since I've been
never-
on probation. Not since I've been on probation, though.
Okay, so that was prior to probation.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that you're a better person and a better parent now in the last couple of years?
I feel like I've grown tremendously. My biggest issue was my temper. But I feel like after everything's said and done and with these classes, I think I'm a better person because of it.
And you're asking the court today to lift the supervised parenting time and to expand your parenting time?
Yes, sir.
And you had mentioned that kids, at least they like to give you hugs and everything. Do they appear to miss you when you drop them off?
Yes, they cry when they walk into the house.
Okay. And you have a close bond with the children?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does it appear they want to spend more time with you?
Yes, every weekend when I go to bring them home, they tell me they don't want to go home.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. McNiff, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Baker, in your motion to expand parenting time, you indicated that you had read parenting books from the local library. What parenting books did you read?
One of my favorite ones was The Idiot's Guide to Parenting. There was
Okay.
that one, and I had two other ones that I didn't get all the way through, but that was before I started taking these classes, and I don't remember what the title was.
And what did you learn from the Idiot's Guide to Parenting?
A lot of the same stuff that I'm learning in my men's healthy relationship class.
It sounds like the men's healthy relationship class involves your relationships with adults as well as children. Is that accurate?
Yes, they have each week we do a different lesson, and there's been several lessons that have had children involved.
And but the books that you indicated you read were specifically about parenting.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you remember one of the things that stood out in your mind from reading a parenting book?
Yeah, like no matter what happens, whatever a kid does, it's always best to come approach them with a soft tone of voice instead of angrily yelling at them. I've read that yelling at a child actually does brain damage.
And prior to reading that, were you, did you yell at children, whether yours or stepchildren?
I wouldn't say like a lot, maybe here and there when they were getting out of hand, I'd have to raise my voice, but never like straight up scream like death yells at them.
Did you ever call Jennifer's boys from a previous relationship retarded?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, if this is going back to the prior order that the court had. Counsel could have presented this at the evidentiary hearing. The court would already have this and taken into consideration.
I can revise that
Okay,
question.
if you would.
Since January 12th of 2022, which was the entry of the last custody order, have you referred to Jennifer's sons as being retarded?
To my knowledge, no.
You've never sent her a text message since that date calling them retarded?
If I did, it was out of anger and I don't remember it.
And other than the class you're currently attending, have you ever attended any anger management counseling?
Like 12 years ago, maybe.
And were you ordered to do that?
Yes.
And did you learn from that experience?
Yes.
But you still ended up with a DV charge far after that, and that's why you're attending the current classes, correct?
Correct.
So why should we believe that you're learning from this class when you didn't learn from the class 12 years ago?
I did learn from the class 12 years ago. What happened with me and Jennifer's son Dominic was an accident.
Right? And have you attended any individual counseling since January 22?
No, not since January of 2022, no.
Okay. Have you ever had a psychological evaluation?
Since January 2022?
Correct.
No, I've not.
And did you live with Shelby Howard?
No, I stayed there several nights a week, but my mailing address was never at Shelby's house. It's always been here at my house. My personal belongings have always been here at my house.
When you said several nights a week, how many nights a week on average would you spend at Shelby Howard's house?
2 to 3, maybe.
And from what period of time to what period of time?
From when we started dating, August 5th of 2022 or 21 till the time we broke up, which was January 29th of 2023.
And you indicated there was only one incident of domestic violence and that she was the aggressor?
Yes, ma'am.
You've never put bruises on her?
No, I have not.
Has she made allegations against you that you've been physically abusive to her?
She has never
May
made
I
that.
object to hearsay?
Ms. McNabb, what's your response?
I'm not asking for specific words. I'm asking if she's ever accused him to him of that type of violence.
Well, that's just an end around, but
Yeah, how
Tomato,
would
tomato.
it not be hearsay if, again, if he's relating an out-of-court statement?
I'll withdraw it.
Okay, thank you.
Did Ms. Howard attend parenting time at your mom's house with your kids?
Yes, ma'am.
How often would she do that?
Almost every Sunday. If she had other plans, she would do that, but most of the time she would hang out with us.
And did she observe you disciplining your children and parenting your children?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that your general discipline is to talk to the children, maybe put them in a timeout. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
ma'am.
Have you ever
Yep.
utilized any form of water to discipline the children?
Water? No.
Like spraying the children with water?
No, my stepdad's got a spray bottle that he just picks on the kids with, but we never do that to discipline them.
Now, you indicated that you thought the roads were fine for the Christmas of 22.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall that there was like a 30-degree temperature drop in about 18 hours during that period of time?
No, I don't recall that.
You don't recall bitter cold?
I'm sorry.
objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Do you recall the roads being icy as a result of a very rapid drop in temperature?
I recall there was a winter advisory on Christmas Eve until 7 p.m. And Christmas Day, I went out driving. Yes, the roads were a little icy, but they were not that bad to where I could go to Coldwater and get my kids. My father came from Kalamazoo to see me on Christmas Day, and he took the highway and said that they were pretty clear.
Would you agree that you were pretty hot about that incident, about the fact that Ms. Wheeler thought that the roads were too bad for the children to be out?
I wouldn't say I was pretty hot. I would say I was upset about it.
You didn't lose your temper?
Can you explain how?
Were you texting her and telling her that you would see her in court, that you were going to bring a police officer over?
Yes, I did.
Now, you indicated that your child support arrearage is so high because the income was incorrect. Is that accurate?
That is
Object,
accurate.
Your Honor, he had stated several things. I would ask her to restate it.
Okay. Well, she can ask individually if that's one of the items or whatever, one of the bases.
Did you indicate that one of the reasons your arrearage was high was because you were making a lower amount of income than what was used for the child support calculation?
Yes, ma'am. In our last evidentiary hearing, you had mentioned that I made $23 an hour at Freedom Motors, so there's no reason I shouldn't be able to make $23 an hour, even though I was only making 15.
And would you agree that you voluntarily quit your job at Freedom Motors?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why you were assigned that income, was because you voluntarily quit that job?
Yes, ma'am.
And you took a lower paying job, correct?
Well, you're always going to take a lower paying job to start at a new place. You don't start at the high numbers like that anywhere you go.
Okay, and that's not what I asked you. I asked you, is it true you quit your job and you took a job with a lower pay?
And I answered that and I said yes.
Okay. Who lives at your mom's house?
My mother, my stepfather, me, and my daughter Jasmine.
And so you have a bedroom, correct?
Yes.
Your mom and your stepdad have a bedroom?
Yes.
Jasmine has a bedroom?
Yes.
And then the fourth bedroom is reserved for your children with Jennifer?
Right now it's got storage in it, but
So where do the children sleep when they spend the night at your mom's house?
they sleep all over. They sleep, some spend the night with their sister Jasmine in their room, some sleep on the couch, some sleep in my room on a cot that I have for them.
So were you to have, now you said you've been having overnights with the children for how long?
Quite a while, at least for a year.
And so is there a reason why that storage room hasn't been cleared out so that the children have appropriate places to sleep?
I would say no, I guess.
Is it possible that storage room could be cleaned out and you could put two sets of bunk beds in there so the children have their own beds?
Yeah.
But even though they've been coming overnight for a year, you haven't found them their own beds.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Even though they've been coming, you say they've been coming at one overnight per every other week, you haven't secured them their own places to sleep, their own beds.
No, I have not.
Why not?
So again, it kind of runs into the money thing. I don't have money to buy them bunk beds right now.
You said that you're doing all of the driving currently.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a point when Jennifer was meeting you into Concha, correct?
Yep, and she stopped that when I told her oldest daughter I wouldn't help her with a ride for her baby.
And did it have anything to do with Christmas of 22?
No, because she stopped doing that well before Christmas of 2022.
Now, your children are 8, 6, 4, and 3, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you indicated that they don't have homework sent home with them?
That's correct.
Would you anticipate that children of that age would have homework?
Yes.
Okay, and why? Why would you think that?
Because Shelby has a son that's 7 years old and he has homework that gets brought home every day.
Okay. Does he go to the same school as your children?
No, he goes to a public school in Battle Creek.
So have you asked Jennifer if there's homework that they need to do on the weekends?
I have not, because Jennifer wishes that we do not speak to each other.
Do you have the ability to send her text messages?
I do.
And could you send her a text message to that would ask that kind of question?
I could, but what would be the point if somebody says we shouldn't speak to each other? Every time I do message her, I don't get a response back. My mother does.
When was the last time that you tried to message her?
As I said before, it was February of 2023.
And what was the message?
Like I said, I was trying to get along with her, try to tell her I want to be civil for the sake of the kids. I also explained to her how Shelby is as a person and the incident that happened. And I tried to tell her that I need my kids now more than ever, and that I would be willing to come to Coldwater to meet up with her, go over how the kids are doing in school and daycare and everything like that. I offered to pay for a meal when I came up there, told her I just wanted to be friends and that I wanted to work together for the sake of our children.
And you're currently on probation for domestic violence as a result of an incident against Jennifer?
No, against Jennifer's son, Dominic.
Do you think she might be a little bit nervous about communicating with you as the result of that experience with you?
Objection is speculation.
I'll withdraw it.
Thank you.
What you said that you read books with the children. What are their favorite books?
They really like Peter Rabbit. We have Jack and the Beanstalk. It's the Mickey Mouse version. And there's we have a lot of we got this little bookcase that comes with like 6 little books or 8 little books of Peppa Pig. They really like Peppa Pig and Paw Patrol.
You know where the children attend school, correct?
I know of, but I don't know where one of the schools actually located at.
Do you know the name of the school?
Yes, I believe it's Jefferson Elementary School. I think that's Braley School.
And have you ever contacted the school to see if you can get a list of the school events?
No, because I knew that I have no rights right now because I have no legal or physical custody. They wouldn't give it to me.
Have you ever looked to see if the school has a website?
No.
Why not?
What would be the point to see if the school has a website?
Do you think the school might post when they have school concerts and school events?
Oh, I'm sure.
But you're not interested in finding out when there might be those school events that would be open to anyone to go see?
I would be.
Object to speculation. I'm going to object to speculation as to what may be on their website.
Well, I don't think that was the question, Mr. Bartello, was whether he'd check in and think that was, that he would want to be involved in those activities. Okay. Go ahead.
To be honest, I didn't really think that far into it that I could do that. So now that you brought that to my attention, I'm definitely going to do that.
Did you inform Jennifer about the Christmas church program that the children performed in?
My mother did, yes.
But you didn't?
No, because again, like I said, Miss Wheeler requested that we don't speak to each other. So I have been respecting her wishes.
You said that your mom and Jennifer don't communicate that much, but your mom contacted her about the Christmas program, correct?
Correct.
And you said that your mom and Jennifer arranged schedules, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, in the Christmas of 2022, they were trying to arrange an alternative date so you could see the children on a different date when the weather was better, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I'm going to object to whatever communication between plaintiff and his mother. We can ask those people. They have personal knowledge.
Okay, Ms. McNiff.
Mr. Baker brought it up in response to one of my questions.
Yeah, okay, let's kind of move on if we could.
Have you ever sent a text message to Ms. Wheeler indicating that you were feeling suicidal and homicidal?
Your Honor, could I have a date?
Yeah, could we put a date on that so we have some?
In approximately 2022.
In 2022, I don't believe I did. If I did, like I said, it was out of anger.
You don't recall in February of 2022 indicating to her that you were depressed?
In February of 2022? No, I don't recall that. But I'm sure I was because my kids were being kept from me.
Do you know whether or not Ms. Howard ever filed a probation violation with your probation officer?
Not once.
Did you ever indicate to Jennifer that when your charges of domestic violence are dropped, that I'd be sweating if I were you to her?
Your Honor, what time period again are we talking?
Okay, if we could have the parameters and dates, Ms. McNiff.
And Your Honor, I don't know if,
I'm looking.
never mind, Your Honor.
I'll withdraw that. That was prior.
Thank you.
You indicated that one of your goals in your class for your action plan was not to react in an angry manner.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree that you do have a history then of reacting in an angry manner?
I'd say in the past that I chose to react in an angry manner more than a calm manner. I wouldn't say that I have an issue with it. As like I said, now I'm in these classes, it's been a big help.
Would could you describe for me what that angry manner was when you were reacting in an angry manner? What would you do?
I would get loud and I would use intimidation tactics to try to coerce the other person to get what I wanted.
And how would you try to coerce the other person to get what you wanted?
Like I said, by intimidation.
So specifically, like was it words? Did you get close to them physically? What would you do?
It was words and maybe getting a little close, but it was never physical.
Did you ever throw anything?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you ever punch a wall?
No.
So it was strictly words. What kinds of words would you use?
Mostly foul language.
Did you call names?
I'm sure I
I'm going to
did.
object, Your Honor, as to everything prior. I mean, I don't know what the court wants to do going prior to the last order. The court would have heard all this before.
He said,
If we could confine ourselves to the last order, I understand you may want to get that in and why, but it's obviously pretty outdated and it's addressed by the last order. So kind of move on if we could, or otherwise we'll be here forever.
I understand, Your Honor, although this was more recent. Mr. Baker was testifying about what his action plan was just recently. And I was asking him what kind of reaction he was trying to improve.
Well, no, you were asking what specifically he had done prior to the classes and how he had previously reacted. So if you want to address how he's reacting now, that's fine, but let's not go beyond that.
I'll move on. Do you have drug and alcohol testing as part of your probation?
No, I have not been tested yet, but I'm pretty sure I will be because most probation, you have to be at least drug tested once.
And can you recall the last time that you lost your temper?
No, I can't. I would say, well, yeah, I can. I would say the last time I lost my temper was when I was sending Jennifer the voicemail about the Christmas. She said I couldn't have the kids.
And you haven't lost your temper with Ms. Howard in the past couple of months?
No, I have not. When we broke up this last January, we broke up over text message and we didn't even see each other's faces.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Bartell, any redirect?
Just briefly. Mr. Baker, if you are given expanded parenting time and unsupervised, are you gonna make the necessary arrangements for your children to have bunk beds or permanent beds?
Yes, sir.
And you might have more money at that time then? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. McNiff, as a result of that limited question?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude your testimony then, Mr. Baker. Mr. Bartel, next witness.
Joyce Crz.
Okay.
Grant.
Ms. Cronk, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What we're going to do is take some testimony from you, so we have to have you sworn in first. If you would
Okay.
raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. You can put your hand down, ma'am. Go ahead, Mr. Bartel.
Yes, can you state your name for the record?
I'm Joyce Crz.
Okay. And do you know Thomas Baker?
Pardon?
Do you know Thomas Baker?
Yes, he's my grandson.
And has there been times in which you have supervised his parenting time with, I guess that would be your great grandchildren?
They're my great grandchildren. Yes.
And have you supervised his visits on a few occasions?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And I guess I want to focus on the time that you have supervised his parenting time. Have you always been around when it was your duty to supervise him on his parenting time?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So you have always been watching him interact with the children?
Yes, I have.
Okay. During that time, have you ever seen him be physical in an inappropriate way with the children?
I never have.
Okay. And could you generally describe to the court his interactions with the children?
Well, when I'm here, he's always playing with the kids. Are always playing with him. He if they need something, they come and ask their daddy. I'm generally just sitting there watching what's going on, and he's just been doing his daddy duties. If they need something, they come to daddy and ask him. He cuddles with them, he plays with them. They love him. I have never seen anything, that it's always been good.
Okay. So it's always been a positive reaction between the children and him?
Yes, it has. They've always been good with him.
Okay. And do you also attend church with Thomas Baker and his children?
Yes, I do.
And how does that go? How well is it?
The kids go up to their class, and we're in the sanctuary.
Does it appear that the children like to go to church?
Yes, they love to. They're always asking, are we going to church? Are we going to church? They love it.
And does Mr. Baker get angry with his children?
I have not witnessed that. If the kids are fighting or something, he will talk to them, and he might put one in timeout for a few minutes, but I've never seen him get angry while I've been here. No.
And does he make sure that the children are fed?
Oh yes, yes. He's always if they're hungry, they'll tell their daddy and he'll go get him something. He helps when Paula cooks, he helps serve the food for them. Yes, he does. He cooks their breakfast.
Okay. And he does he make sure that they're appropriately clothed?
Yes, he does. Yep, he bathes them, he combs their hair. The other day he was even washing their laundry so they could put clean clothes on to go back home. Yes, he does.
And does he do any educational activities with them that you witness?
Yes, he does puzzles. They'll bring him a book and he'll go with the book look at the book with them, and they do things on the table, games and stuff, yes.
And if the children are sick, does he attend to their needs?
Yes, he does.
And what does he do?
Well, he'll check and make sure that they're okay. If they need something like a drink or something, he gets it for him. He checks on them to make sure that they're feeling all right, checks their temp. Yes, he does.
And do you love your great-grandchildren?
Pardon?
Do you love your great-grandchildren?
I sure do.
Okay. And would you put them in harm's way?
No way. No way.
Okay. And do you think it would be appropriate for Mr. Baker to have unsupervised parenting time and expanded parenting time with his children?
I think it'd be fine. I have never seen any negative activity with him. They love him. They love to be with him.
Okay. So at least everything you've witnessed between Mr. Baker and the children, his children, have been positive?
Yes, it has. I've been thinking, I have not seen anything negative when I've been here with them.
Okay. And how often are you with Mr. Baker and his children?
I've been with them for several times when Paula's had to go to work. I've been here
Okay.
2 and 3 hours at a time.
Okay.
And then she comes back home.
Okay. Have you seen any, I guess, improvement by Mr. Baker in the last year or two? I guess with regards to any anger or anything like that regarding him?
Yeah, I really haven't seen any anger in him when I've been around him.
Okay.
He, he might have a discussion, but and I haven't seen the anger, any anger.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. McNiff, any cross?
I have no questions for Ms. Krantz.
Okay, Ms. Cronks, that will conclude your testimony. You're free to go. Have a good day, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Next witness, Mr. Bartell.
Your Honor, I'm finished.
Okay. You rest?
I do arrest, Your Honor. I couldn't do it as quick as Dick Stevens, but I tried my best.
Okay. I won't touch that, Mr. Bartell. I want to, but I won't. I see it's about 10 to 12. Ms. McNiff, just so we know, how many witnesses are you going to have?
I have three, potentially two, depending on Mr. Bartell's cross of my client.
Okay.
I did have a witness who was in the waiting room all morning, and she had to leave for a doctor's appointment. I believe that she will be able to return.
Okay, that was when we had the break. Miss Howard came in, and Miss Woodard talked to her, and she mentioned that, and Miss Woodard recommended that she contact your office, Miss McNiff.
And she did do that. So I anticipate that after her doctor's appointment, she will be back.
Okay. So why don't we do that? Why don't we break for noon lunch, and then we'll be back at 1 o'clock and reconvene.
Miss Howard, where do you live?
Battle Creek.
And do you work?
No, ma'am.
Are you on disability?
Yes.
Can you tell us what you're on disability for?
A learning disability.
Okay. And do you have children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many children do you have?
2 boys,
How old are they?
9 and 8.
Do you know Mr. Thomas Baker?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you know him?
He was my ex.
And how long did you date him?
A year and a half, I believe it was.
And did you ever have a period of time where you broke up?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was the first time that you broke up?
Last year, around January 28th, I want to say.
Did you ever live together?
He lived at my house with me.
And for how long did he live with you?
About a year and a half, the whole time we was together. The first
And were
time.
there any significant periods of time when you were not together?
Yes.
What was that time frame?
That was January of last year when he had choked me in my own living room.
Okay. And
I have a police report on that too.
okay, and that was around January 28th of 2023.
Yep.
And tell me what happened to cause that breakup?
He had grabbed me up because he was getting in my purse for the house key after I had broken up with him.
Okay.
And he grabbed me up because I started hollering at him. He grabbed me up with with my crop top on and yanked me up off of my chair and put me onto the floor.
Did he cause
And
any
was over
injuries?
top of me.
Did he
Yes,
cause you
ma'am,
any?
I have pictures.
Okay, can you describe the injuries?
I had his hands prints around my neck and I had a gouge in my left leg.
And you said that you made a police report?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know whether any charges were made against Mr. Baker?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you ask for the police to charge him?
Yes.
Okay. But you never were called to court or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
I called his probation officer.
Okay. And after that incident, how long were you separated?
Oh, I don't even know. 6, 7 months. And he said that he had gotten on medication and he had changed. And a month into this relationship, it was just the same abusive stuff.
So when you say the same abusive stuff, what
verbally abusive and mentally abusive. He didn't get physical the second time because I was not home.
And when you say he was mentally abusive, what kinds of things would he do that you considered mentally
I got
abusive?
a whole voice clip that I can send you guys.
Well, we can't
stalked my house.
We can't really do a video clip, but if you can describe what would happen when he would mentally abuse you, what kinds of things he would say.
Demand me to see him, demand me to speak with him. He would get different numbers and message me different Facebook. And I'm in the process of getting a PPO also.
Okay. And when you were together, did you ever spend time with his children?
Yes, ma'am.
Which children do you recall seeing?
Rayleigh, Macy, Tessa, and Zoe, and Jasmine. I've seen Jasmine a lot more than the girls, but I've been there both times. I've spent the night with the girls at grandma's.
And when you would go to grandma's and see the girls, were there ever any times that Mr. Baker's mother or grandmother would not be present?
His grandma, Paula had left once, and Tim was in the basement supposedly watching as the supervised visit, but wasn't upstairs. And one time Tessa was crying, and Paula had told me that she had poured water on Tessa's face.
Well,
I
don't
object to any hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection, strike the answer.
And Miss Howard, you can't tell me what Ms. Harris said to you. You can only tell me what Mr. Baker said to you in certain cases. Did you
Okay.
did you observe this water discipline?
I did not see it, no.
And is Tim Mr. Baker's stepfather?
Yes.
And was that the only time that you saw
I've
that-
seen TJ whoop Tessa for crying because she was scared of a knife.
when you say that you've seen Mr. Baker whoop Tessa, what can you describe exactly what you observed?
A bare hand on her butt cheek.
Okay. And did she have pants on or a diaper on?
No,
Is she the only child that you saw him physically discipline?
yes. And my son also was abused by him. He would smack my son in the face and everything.
And what did you do when he would smack your son in the face?
I would tell him not to be punishing my kid because it is not his kid.
Did you ever hear him raise his voice to the girls?
Yes. The
And
two younger ones, Zoe and Tessa, and
And was it-
Jasmine a lot.
was it normal parenting time? Hey, don't do that. Stop it.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, Miss Howard.
He
I
would
didn't
be
catch-
hollering at them.
Did he ever use profanity?
With Jasmine, yes.
Not with the younger children?
Not of my knowledge, no.
And was it just the one time that you saw him use the physical discipline with Tessa?
No, I've seen him be physical with her a bunch of times, actually.
And she's the only child.
She's the youngest. Tessa is the youngest.
But is she the only child you've seen him be physical with in terms
Yes.
of discipline?
And
And-
Jasmine. Jasmine is the oldest.
And
And
what
my
have you
son.
what have you observed him how have you observed him be physical with Jasmine?
He calls her a fat ass. He pulls her hair. He smacked her in the face once. He's taken her phone because she had texted her mother.
Were you aware that Mr. Baker was in a class for healthy relationships?
Yes.
And did he ever complain to you about that class?
Yes, he didn't want to go to it half the time. Half the time he would call in and lie and say he didn't have the money.
And how do you know he was lying about the money?
Because he's told me about the money. He says that child support takes it all.
And did you see him have enough money? Did you observe him with money that he had to pay for the class?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you observed Mr. Baker use alcohol during your
Yes, he
relationship?
did on New Year's.
Okay. And how much alcohol did he have to drink?
Well, we drank 2/5 together. I mean, I ain't gonna lie.
Okay, so you each drank a fifth, is that,
We drank together.
okay. And was this past New Year's Eve for 23,
Yes,
24?
Yes,
And-
ma'am.
And how soon after that did you break up for the second time?
It wasn't not even a couple weeks after that I had to let him go because he came in, his car was messed up. He had an attitude about that, and I told him that if I knew he was coming back with an attitude, then I would leave. He called me a bitch, slammed my front door, and my 8-year-old son was sitting right there when he did all that.
Have you seen Mr. Baker use any drugs?
Weed,
Okay. And when was the last time that you can remember him using marijuana?
just what month is it? March, February. In January, when we was together in January.
Okay, January of 2024?
In the beginning of January.
Okay. What kinds of things would the children do that would prompt Mr. Baker to discipline them?
Daddy, 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 daddy. That's it. And he'd
Okay.
get irritated, so would Paula. And Paula would be like, I gotta get out of the house for a minute. And she would leave out of the house for a minute. And Braylee would ask where'd Grandma go. I don't know where Grandma went. She's irritated and went out the house. I don't know. Dad goes outside. Thomas Baker goes outside and smokes him some weed because he went to GLH and got some. That's what he does when he gets mad.
What is GLH?
The weed shop in Battle Creek, Michigan.
So when they would go outside, were they just like out by the door, or were they gone?
On the front porch of Paula's house.
Okay, so Paula wasn't leaving to go far.
Paula's left, yes. She has left in her van a couple of times and left us there with Tim. And then, I don't know that. His Gigi, whoever Gigi is, she was there once. And then there was another time where Gigi wasn't there and Tim was in the basement supposedly. But I did not witness Tim in the basement at all. He did not come up or nothing.
Did you observe Mr. Baker cooking for the children?
No, ma'am. No. His mom did that. Paula did the cooking, or Jasmine.
Mr. Baker never made breakfast for the children, lunch for the children?
No, I don't recall him ever making nothing besides running and grabbing a pizza.
Did you ever see Mr. Baker clean up the dishes after Ms. Harris would?
No, his mother, he didn't do dishes at my house neither. No.
Did you observe Mr. Baker doing any laundry at his mother's house?
No,
Did you see him cleaning up?
no, ma'am.
Did you ever observe Ms. Harris discipline the children?
I mean, yeah, she'd make them sit on the couch when they would act up.
Okay. Was that pretty much the extent of her discipline of the children?
Yeah, besides her telling me that they poured water on Tessa's face.
Objection, Your Honor, as to hearsay.
Sustained, strike the answer.
What did you observe about the children's relationship with their father?
Not so good.
Did they want to come and sit on his lap?
I mean, that's what they would always do, is sit on him, and he would always push him off and tell him to get off of him because he was busy.
Did you observe Mr. Baker reading them stories?
No, ma'am.
Did you observe him snuggling with them, watching movies?
No.
Did you see him playing any age-appropriate games with them?
He did Legos with Braylee one time, and that's about it.
Do you feel that Mr. Baker was effective at managing all 4 children at the same time?
No.
And why not?
He don't have the patience for it. He gets irritated soon as when they all bum rush him. Like every time he gets bum rushed, it's a crisis for him.
Were you ever present when the children were leaving Mr. Baker and going back to their mother?
A couple of times, and they would cry because they didn't want to go, but then they would cry when we would pick them up too because they didn't want to come.
Were you comfortable with Mr. Baker being alone with your children?
No,
Why not?
because of his mouth and the way he punishes my kid. No. Mm-mm.
And did you ever observe Mr. Baker purchasing clothing for the children?
No, ma'am. I've seen Paula.
What about toys?
No.
Did you ever observe Mr. Baker reading any parenting books from the library?
No, ma'am. He don't even go to the library.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about the safety of Ms. Wheeler's children in their father's care?
Yeah, I actually do. I feel like his mother should not be the person watching it. I feel like he needs to be like somewhere else and have somebody like literally be there with his kids that to do that type of thing.
Why do you think Ms. Harris is not an effective supervisor?
Because she has used urine for her son.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Bartel, any cross?
Yes, did you reach out to Jennifer Wheeler or did Jennifer Wheeler reach out to you?
I reached out to Jennifer.
And what day was that?
I did it last year around January.
Okay. Did you reach out to her after that?
Yes.
And when was that?
I don't remember the exact date.
Was that in
I've
2024?
been talking on and off with Jennifer for a while now.
Okay. Was she the one who asked you to testify here today?
I told her that I was willing to testify to get closure for these girls.
Okay. So you brought up testifying against Mr. Baker.
No. She
Okay,
had.
so I'm sorry.
Jennifer had.
And when was that?
Last week is when she
Oh.
asked me, and I told her that I would.
Okay. And you said you had been talking to her on and off. For how long have you been talking to her on and off?
About a year. In January, it was a year.
Okay. So were you talking to her while you were dating Mr. Baker the second time around?
No.
Okay, so you weren't talking to her between August of 23 until at least a week or two ago?
Yup.
And you're the one that initiated the contact?
I told her if she needed me, I would be there for her.
I understand. My question was who initiated the contact, correct?
Yes.
So you're angry with my client, correct?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Okay. And so, as I understand it, you claimed that he was physical with you back in January of 23. You wanted charges pressed against him, correct?
Yes.
You say that you showed the police bruises, correct?
Yes.
You say you had pictures of bruises, correct?
Yes.
You told them that he grabbed you by the neck, correct?
Correct.
And you said, I want to press charges, correct?
Yes.
And you never heard anything.
Yes.
And you say you broke up with my client the first time?
Both times because of
Okay.
his mouth and his anger issues.
Can you say, let me ask you this. Is there anything nice you can say about my client?
No. I'm sorry.
Okay, and yeah, you got back together with him in August of 2023, correct?
Yep, that was when he showed me proof that he was on some medication.
Okay. So yes, you got back together with him despite you have no nice things to say about him, correct?
Right.
And isn't it true you've indicated that you're on disability, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever worked a day in your life?
No.
So you're on state assistance your entire life.
Yes.
And isn't it true you suffer from bipolar? You are bipolar.
No.
Isn't it true you have PTSD?
Yes, and that was because of TJ, Thomas Baker.
And you claim that you called my client's probation officer, correct?
Yep.
Is it you that reached out to Miss Wheeler's counsel last January or February to say there were criminal charges against Mr. Baker?
No,
Okay. Did you ever tell Miss Wheeler there are criminal charges against Mr. Baker?
no,
So as I understand it, your testimony here today is that my client's mother, grandmother, and everyone in the family basically let Mr. Baker do as he pleases.
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
They're scared of him. I'm guessing. I know I'm terrified of him. I'm about to do the PPO.
Okay, that's
after
not
this
my
work.
question. That's not my question. A lot of these are yes or no, if you could answer them that way.
Yes,
So as I understand, you basically have testified that Mr. Baker does absolutely nothing for his children. Is that correct?
yeah. He don't even have beds for the kids.
Now, let me ask you this. Did you indicate any of this to Miss Wheeler back in January of 2023?
Yes, I did.
And what did you indicate to her? Pretty much most of everything you talked about here today?
Yes, sir.
So she knew back then that the supervised parenting time was not occurring all the time, correct?
Do what?
So she knew that not all the supervised parenting time was occurring, correct?
Who?
Jennifer Wheeler.
I don't think she did. No,
She did or didn't know?
didn't know until I told her.
And when did you specifically tell her?
That I didn't think the kids was safe in his care.
Okay, when did you tell her that not all the supervised parenting time was occurring?
Last year, around January 28th.
Okay. And rather than going through all of this, except for your most recent breakup and what happened from August until January of 2024, you had told her everything else. And when I say her, Jennifer Wheeler, is that correct?
Yes.
And you had any, okay, very good. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. McNiff, any redirect?
Briefly, Miss Howard, you told Mr. Bartell that Mr. Baker had shown you some medication that he was taking.
Yes.
Do you recall the name of that medication?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Baker tell you what the medication was for?
Bipolar.
And did you tell Ms. Wheeler in January of 2023 that you had called the police on Mr. Baker for domestic
Yes,
violence? Did you
Yes.
know it? Did you know at that time whether the police would follow up?
No, I didn't.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Anything else, Mr. Bartell?
None, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Howard, thank you for your testimony. You're excused. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Next witness, Ms. McNiff.
Jennifer Wheeler.
Ms. Wheeler, raise your right hand. We'll have you sworn in, then we'll proceed.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Ms. McNiff.
Ms. Wheeler, where do you live?
I live in my home in Coldwater, Michigan.
And who lives with you?
The 4 little girls, Braylee, Macy, Zoe, and Tessa, and then my 2 teenage boys, Blake and Dominic Wheeler.
And do you recall whether Ms. Howard told you last year that parenting time wasn't being supervised?
I don't recall if she told me last year, no.
And do you recall her telling you that Mr. Baker had spanked Tessa?
Yes, actually, in looking back over the messages, I realized that I had missed some of what she had said, but yes.
And Ms. Wheeler, do you work?
Yes,
And where do you work?
I work for a company out of Grand Rapids called Serve You Success, but I generally work in Coldwater at the Coldwater store. Every now and again, I will travel, but for the past year or so, it's only been Coldwater based.
And what are your work hours?
I go in at 6:30 in the morning and I'm out by 2 in the afternoon.
And what is your rate of pay
18:10.
per hour?
Yes, sorry.
It's okay. And how many hours do you work per week?
It varies. Obviously, I have to miss for stuff like this. I generally have been on 4 days lately. I need to do more, but due to childcare, I've been having to make some adjustments.
So is it 8 hours every day that you work?
I want to say it comes out to what, 7.5 because I don't take a paid lunch. But daycare doesn't open until 6, so that's why I don't go until 6:30 because I have to drop the girls at daycare first.
And do you have health insurance for the children?
Yes.
And what do you pay for the health insurance?
No, thankfully they get Medicaid, United Healthcare.
And do you agree with Mr. Baker that he is about $12,000 in arrears on his child support?
I haven't looked. It sounds probably about right, but I honestly couldn't tell you.
And Mr. Sweet testified that you had told him that Mr. Baker was a good father. Do you recall saying that?
No, the only thing I could think of during that, Bruce Sweet is a very nice man, but I'm honest. And when TJ is good with the girls, he seems like a great dad and interacts great. So in those times, he is a good father. It's just he's so volatile and back and forth. That's what makes him, that's where my concern lies deeply.
Have you ever advised Mr. Baker about any school activities?
I really stopped talking to him probably over a year ago. When we first broke up, the women's shelter had advised me to stay away for the safety. And then he kept harassing me to the point where I had to block his number so he'd call me from other numbers. So I stopped all communication with him. I advised him he could communicate with me through my family member or his mom because we communicate. Not so much school activities. I mean, if they ask her, I'll send her stuff. Like I took a picture of Macy's report card. But like the dance and stuff, I'll tell her what's going on with them.
So do you utilize Ms. Harris as a go-between?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Would you object to there being a way for you and Mr. Baker to communicate, for example, through a specialized parenting time app on your phone?
That would be fine. I just can't speak to him directly because no matter what I say or do, he launches into an attack and I literally can't take it anymore. So no, through an app where it's straightforward, that would be great.
Okay. Do you attend church?
No. I used to, Overflow Church. I would love to go there again, but between the distance and Mr. Baker and I, no, I do not.
Okay. And you don't have any objection to the children attending church with
No, I love that church. I think that's a good thing. And Paul and I have discussed that. And they've actually gone to a youth group here at our church down the street that they like as well, a children's program.
So the children go to church, you just don't go?
They have gone to the thing. They don't go on the regular. It just kind of depends on our schedule because they get up so early on school nights. They're ready for bed super early. But they do go.
Mr. Baker said that you don't celebrate holidays. Is that accurate?
No,
Are you a Scrooge?
no. I mean, when I first met him, I probably wasn't so much into holidays, but as I had kids, I got more into it for them. I was kind of raised, Christmas was more of religious thing, and then they said it was evil. So for my kids, I totally get into it. Yeah.
Right. And so you were raised in a religion that didn't celebrate holidays?
Well, when I was younger, we did. And then when I was older, they went to a church that decided it was a pagan holiday, so they did not celebrate it as such. But I have no problem with Christmas, and absolutely, even with my older kids, we celebrated it, tree, gifts, everything.
Now, Mr. Baker and Ms. Harris testified that at some point in 2023, you started allowing overnights with the children at Ms. Harris's home. Is that accurate?
That sounds correct, yes.
And was it your understanding that Mr. Baker was there for those overnights?
I honestly don't know. I knew he had a girlfriend. I'd heard that he had stayed with her some. So it was just plans between Paul and I. I wanted them to have their grandma relationship. They love her. But I don't know. I can't say if he was present or not. I don't know.
And was that a concern of yours, whether he was present?
Of course, but the fact that he already had supervised visitation with her, there really wasn't much I could do in that respect. I'm not trying to keep them from a relationship with their grandma.
At that point, did you trust Ms. Harris to supervise and to ensure that the kids were safe and taken care of?
So Bruce Sweet was initially the one that had approached me in regards to that because he wasn't able to with the schedule. He was only able to supervise 3 times. And he thought Paula, from his observation, would be able to keep TJ in check with the children. Was I entirely comfortable with it? No. But with his advice, I didn't see a lot of other options. And I know Paula's a kind person.
And do you still believe that Ms. Harris is able to keep Mr. Baker in check?
I know that I think a lot of people are afraid of him and his temper, and that's her son. And I've told her that at the end of the day, I understand that's her son, but to defend wrong because he's her son, no, I have concerns about that. And I have all along. But again, he was ordered supervised visitation. So
do you agree that sometimes when the children are returned to you from Mr. Baker, that they cry, that they resist coming back?
So they specifically mentioned Macy. I don't go out when they come. I try to avoid any contact with TJ. It's very my life is more peaceful without those issues. So they come in. Macy is very clingy. If I drop her off at daycare, she'll hug me more and cry. She'll say she cried for me on the bus. So I don't doubt when she leaves her dad. I don't doubt that she's upset at first. But when they come in, they come right up to my room and they're happy. Or whatever room I happen to be in at that time. It's usually in the evening.
Does Macy have difficulties transitioning in general?
Yeah, I would say Macy is more of, their personalities are all different. So yes, Macy takes things differently than the other ones. So kind of she needs a different approach. Yeah.
So do you agree that it's been about a year that there have been regular overnights at Ms. Harris's home?
I wouldn't say regular, but a lot more. Yes. Yes. And for a while, like for the Christmas program they wanted to do, and she'll ask me, even this past week, she said, can they stay an hour longer? We're doing something, and that's fine.
Since the expanded parenting time entered on July 5th of 2022, have you had enough contact with Mr. Baker to be able to know whether or not his behavior has changed?
No. He blew up my phone with like a book of messages for months. I think it stopped in maybe towards the end of 22. I'd have to look. So no, like I said, I there's no point in trying to have contact.
Did he have contact with you around the time that he and Miss Howard broke up the first time?
Yes, he started sending me all kinds of messages, I don't know that I have them all. I accidentally threw phone in a cardboard compactor.
And I'm not going to ask you.
Right, I know you can't, but yes. And it was the variety of cycle, the pleading, the threats, whatever, just that circle.
So did he threaten you in any of those messages?
I think most of the messages I have where he actually threatened me and or the children were prior to last year. He had sent me messages where he had thoughts of suicide and thoughts of homicide, where to enjoy the Christmas with the girls, it might very well be my last. Just a lot of, my lawyer's paid up, yours isn't, we can keep going to court. Yeah, a lot of harassment. but I just didn't respond.
And did you respond to him when he was messaging you regarding his breakup with Miss Howard?
No, I do not believe I did.
Can you tell me what happened with Christmas in 2022?
So for my recollection, his day to have them, I believe, would have been that Sunday. And they were going to come pick him up on a Saturday night, and there was a winter weather warning. I think it was like a blizzard warning. I looked it up. It was bad. I believe like nobody was supposed to be on the road. So I had shared with Paula that I was concerned about that. We might have to make adjustments for their safety. She was on board. He was not. And it just escalated to a disaster.
Did Mr. Baker contact you regarding that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day?
Yes, he was threatening to bring the police, which that Saturday wasn't even technically his time anyway. It's just when we were gonna do it, so it wouldn't have mattered. You know, just the usual threats. You know, that he's gonna get his way and we'll go to court, and no regards for their safety. And I mean, he lives an hour's drive, so being on a highway and that.
Did you try to make provisions for makeup parenting time so you could see the children close to the Christmas holiday?
Absolutely. I have no problem with that. Even on Mother's Day, I didn't have to let them have them when we first started one year. And I said, you know, as long as they want to go, I'm not one of those parents that holds them back from that stuff.
And what was your reaction to his text messages that during that period of Christmas in 2022? Did you respond to him?
I don't believe I did. I can look back and see, but like I said, I don't know if I have the old ones, but there's no
Your
point.
Honor, I'm going to object if she's looking at documents.
Well, if that refreshes her recollection to see whether she responded or not.
Well, you got to go through a process first. You can't just start looking at things. I don't have a copy of what she's looking at, etc.
I have my text messages, but I just want to make sure I'm being honest on the dates.
We
sustain the objection unless a foundation's laid.
Yeah, we can move on. Did Mr. Baker ever get makeup parenting time for Christmas?
Yes, I believe he did after, well, probably not until he and his mom, she went back to taking them. And at that point, she had said she had made it clear like it was her time or whatever, and she was not still supervising. He could have had that makeup time for Christmas, but it got so bad during that time that I went over and stayed at a hotel over there, and Paula came to the hotel to see the kids and bring gifts. We were going to meet up at her house, and she was actually afraid of him coming by and getting angry. So yes, he absolutely could have had makeup time.
Since July of 2022, has Mr. Baker confided anything to you that would make you believe that he was feeling suicidal?
Just like I said, that one message that he sent me saying how he had thoughts of suicide and homicide, and it bothered me a lot because I know how he is, but I don't even know if it was directed, you know, towards the homicide. I don't know.
He didn't threaten you with homicide.
He just said he had thoughts of suicide and homicide and texted that to me, which I guess it can be interpreted however. Yeah.
Okay. And since the entry of that last custody order in 21, has Mr. Baker called you any names, been vulgar with you, been profane with you?
You know, again, I would have to look at text because I just honestly stopped responding to him. You know, he's told me I'm a piece of this and that. He's called me a bitch in front of the kids, but in that time frame, I honestly couldn't tell you because I just try to steer clear.
Does Mr. Baker call and talk to the children?
No.
And I believe in his motion to expand parenting time, he indicated that he would call and that you would not return the call.
No, he would get mad if we weren't right there when he called. And I tried to explain to him that the kids had, you know, they had dance, they had daycare, they have a schedule. And sometimes I'd see he called and I'd have them call him back, example, when I picked him up. One time we were sick and didn't call. Well, he got mad at me about that. But then he turned around and said, I haven't called because I've been sick. So I wasn't sure how to interpret that one either.
So was there a period of time that he did call the children and then he stopped?
Yeah, I would say the first early on when we first split, he did more, but he never does to my knowledge anymore, not on my phone.
So in the last, say, the last year, has he, do you recall any times he's tried to call and talk to the children?
No.
Do any of your children with Mr. Baker have any special needs?
No,
And do you think there's any reasonable likelihood of abuse or neglect during parenting time with Mr. Baker?
Oh, I'm gonna object to speculation, Your Honor. She can't
Your Honor,
testify
it's
to
one
that.
of the parenting time factors.
That's for the court to determine, Your Honor, based upon the testimony, not do you believe that he's gonna go beat him or something like that.
Well, Ms. McNiff, if you can lay a better foundation for the question, I'll allow it.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Have you observed anything with regard to Mr. Baker caring for the children that would cause you a concern?
I'll
Yes.
object, Your Honor, since we are limited to the time frame since the last order, and she has indicated she hasn't seen my client. She wouldn't be able to testify to that.
Ms. McNiff, your response?
Well, I think that she could answer. If the answer is no, she hasn't observed anything, then I'll move on.
Okay, well, let her answer. If the answer is no, then I guess if it's yes, then we're gonna need more foundational questions.
Do you need me to repeat the question?
I'm sorry, I probably do.
I said, have you personally observed anything that would cause you concern about Mr. Baker's care of the children?
Not since that last order that I can think of, simply because I owe no contact.
Did his response to Christmas of 22 give you any concern about his care for the children?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And why?
Because if you're willing to take your children out when nobody should be on the roads and the highway just because, you know, that's what you wanted without understanding that their safety should come first, that is very troubling to me. And yes.
Do you have any concerns about Mr. Baker's behavior towards you if you were exchanging the children and face to face with him?
Yes.
And what are your
I'm
concerns?
sorry.
It's okay. What are your concerns?
Because he has no problem, and this is why I stopped just shooting off at the mouth in front of the kids, you know, calling me, I don't know if I should say the
You
words a
can say
bitch.
it.
And
I'm gonna
cussing at me.
object, Your Honor. I need a time frame, and it appears they're going back prior to the order. These are things that she said she has no contact with them, and they keep going back prior to the last order.
Okay, let's confine ourselves to the last order, Ms. McNiff.
Since January 12th of 2022, has there been any time that there have been child exchanges where you have felt threatened by Mr. Baker?
Not that I can think of, but like I said, I've just made it a point to just avoid him altogether.
At some point, were you meeting him for the
Early
child
on.
exchanges?
Early on, we would meet at the police station or out at the jail, and then we did exchanges at the McDonald's there in Taconcha. But I didn't really have to interact with him, you know, just
So-
call it.
Since the entry of that last custody order in January of 22, have you exchanged the children in person? Have you met with him?
I think I've seen him, but no, what Paula usually does is she comes. I don't even know even if TJ's always with her, and she'll be there. She'll message, you know, I'm here, and I have the girls ready and waiting to go out. And then she'll message when they come back, and I say they can come on it.
Did you stop meeting him in Taconcha before or after January of 22?
I want to say it was after that when Paula said she was no longer the supervisor. Of course, there was no reason to.
And you said that you live about an hour away from Mr. Baker?
I think I would have to look to see. I think it's probably like 30 some or 40 miles. So he might drive it faster than me, but yes, it's the distance between Coldwater and Battle Creek.
And has Mr. Baker exercised all of his parenting time?
No, I actually had offered even early on before, you know, it was ordered, I'd offered that he could go to the park and, you know, he got along fine with my siblings. Of course, after that, they weren't close, but they could be there and play. She could bring her kid. He refused. And I said, well, if you want to take him out to eat for dinner, you know, do the gifts. And he didn't unless it was
And
him
has
alone.
has this been since January of 22?
I think I pretty much stopped offering anymore because he won't take it. He said, no.
Do you recall if you've offered him additional time since January of 22?
Well, since the visitation is supervised by his mom, when she asks for extra days and whatnot, they go there. And like I said, I don't know if he's there or not, but being as she's the supervisor, yes, I mean, that probably would have been available to him, I assume.
And since January of 22, has Mr. Baker threatened to detain the children or keep them away from you?
I want to say it was before. I'm sorry, I lose track of timelines. The one Christmas where he said, enjoy your Christmas and it might well be your last. But I can't say
I'm
for
going to
sure.
object, Your Honor. We can't pare down the dates. She keeps saying she doesn't have communication with him since January 22, and yet all these questions. So I'm going to have a standing objection to all this line of questioning about communication between her and him when she already has said numerous times she avoids it and she doesn't have any.
Ms. McNiff,
Very simple.
obviously it appears clear that she's saying she doesn't have any communication. She hasn't had any communication since the day of the last order. So I don't know what you're trying to get in, but I'm not going to allow it.
I think she also indicated that she had communication with him after his breakup with his girlfriend in January of 23. That he was sending her communication. So
Yes.
that's what I'm trying to.
That was it, though. She didn't say any other communication other than that he had communicated with her, and that's it. So don't go into other things that don't exist.
Very well, Your Honor. I'm sorry, Ms. Wheeler, what is your position on Mr. Baker's request to expand parenting time?
No, I have honestly sat and thought because I think children need a healthy relationship with their father. And I want them to have that, but I know how things are and have been. And I'm very scared for their safety. And this is my last effort to stand up for them. I understand and will respect the court's decision, but I honestly fear for their safety and well-being if they're alone with him.
Would you be more comfortable if there was a provision that prohibited any corporal punishment?
Probably, but it's a lot of combinations of things of knowing.
And are you comfortable with the idea of there being unsupervised parenting time?
No, that's what scares me, but I understand it may come to that. And at the end of the day, I tried.
And knowing that Mr. Baker is residing with his mother full-time at this point, are you more or less comfortable with the children being there?
Like I said, I think Paula looks out for him. My fear is that TJ, being her son, I have seen in action the manipulation and the fear. And my concern is that things would be covered because of that. But Paula in and of herself is a nice person.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Bertel?
All right, thank you. Isn't it true that you leave all of your children alone with your, I guess, older children and go to the hotel room?
I'm sorry, what?
Don't you leave your children alone?
Back
and
around.
Go to a hotel room.
No, not as a general rule. Have I ever left them with adult supervision? Yes. But as a general rule, no.
No, what I'm asking is that you leave all the children, so they're all under 18, by themselves while you go to a hotel room?
Absolutely not.
Isn't it true you have indicated in the last 2 years, since January of 22?
Are
So
you
that
asking
was a no?
again? No.
Okay. And so, isn't it true you don't have communication with your daughter Taylor anymore, that you have cut her off?
Yes.
Okay. So if she is saying that you would go to the hotel rooms or leave for periods of time and leave all the kids alone, she would be lying?
Yes. Taylor
Okay.
hasn't even lived in the home for a long while. She actually got mad at both her dad and I about something, and so now all these things are coming out. Lies.
Isn't it true that you have hit your son Dominic in the face?
I don't know if on the face, Dominic has always had some emotional behavioral issues. He's the one that TJ was probably the hardest on.
I'm just asking yes or no.
And I'm answering, I don't know. On the face, he was spitting and or biting his brothers while we were restraining him because he was physically violent probably 2 or 3 years ago. And yes, I did. If he's gonna spit or head at his brothers, yes, I would slap him.
If this was longer ago than the entry of the last order, I would ask to strike that.
Well, Mr. Bartel, what's your response?
Well, first you said it was 2 or 3 years ago, so it appears in the time frame. This is new information for the court, and she's admitted she hits her kid.
I'll take it for that, bet then stating that he does have some behavioral issues and she's had to slap him when he's been out of control.
We got his medication adjusted and got him to a new therapist. So we are getting him the help that he needs.
Ms. Willer, my questions are going to be yes or no. I know it's hard for you to answer yes or no, but if you limit it to yes or no, your attorney could always follow up with you. As I understand, you are not going to communicate with Mr. Baker, correct?
I would prefer not to.
And have you, in the last 2 years, I guess from your perspective, offered to help Mr. Baker in any way to improve himself?
I told you I avoid contact with him, so no.
And what have you done in the past 2 years to foster your children's relationship with Mr. Baker?
I really make it a point to not let them know all the things that are going on, and just encourage them to go have fun with their dad. Try to keep all the adult stuff away from them, their children, and just let them know, that they're free to freely communicate.
And you admit that you have no personal knowledge, meaning you have not witnessed with your own eyes or something like that, that shows that Mr. Baker has not improved in the last 2 years?
No.
And did there come a point that you made up that Mr. Baker was being charged with a felony charge last year?
I don't recall making anything up. We had heard that he might be charged with one, but there was no concrete. That was just what we had heard.
And I'm sure you heard that from what, his reliable ex-girlfriend?
Objection, Your Honor, argumentative.
Sustained, if rephrase it, Mr. Bartel.
Did you hear that from his ex-girlfriend?
I knew of the altercation from his ex-girlfriend, but as far as the charges, all I knew is that there had been a police report and it was possibly going through the courts. So again, I really don't know either way. That was just my understanding.
And you admit in the last 2 years, you have not filed a motion to change supervisor from Paula Harris, correct?
Correct.
And you admit that you have not filed a motion with the court to further restrict Mr. Baker's parenting time, correct?
Correct.
And you have not in the last 2 years filed a motion to ask for a psychological evaluation of Mr. Baker, correct?
Correct.
And you have not in the last 2 years filed any motion whatsoever to change anything with regards to Mr. Baker as to his parenting time, counseling, or anything, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, did you not actually willingly agree and stipulate to expand Mr. Baker's parenting time to from 1 hour to 6 hours with my client's mother supervising?
Yes, initially I did agree with that after conferring with Bruce Sweet.
Okay, but you stipulated to it. You agreed to it.
Yes.
Okay, and the court did not order that or force you to do that.
They ordered him away. I mean, my preference would have been to keep him away, but my understanding was that's what he would get as some supervised parenting time.
And since January of 22, you have no personal knowledge as to whether Mr. Baker exercised all his parenting time, correct?
Correct.
And since January of 22, you have no personal knowledge as to Mr. Baker's interaction with his 4 daughters, correct?
Correct. Unless I've seen them at drop off. But like I said, I try to just stay in the house and avoid all that.
So you admit, would you admit most of your testimony here today is based upon what other people are telling you, namely hearsay, correct?
No, a lot of the questions I would say were based on my experience. Yes, some is obviously
Well,
hearsay because I haven't interacted with him directly.
But you otherwise have not witnessed any interactions between Mr. Baker and the minor children, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McNiff, any redirect?
Briefly, when was the last time that your daughter Taylor lived at the house?
So she went to the Youth Challenge Academy. Bear with me because I'm horrible with dates. She graduated, I think, a year ago Christmas, and she only briefly lived at the house since then.
And when you said briefly, like for a day, a week?
I'm thinking a few weeks, and then she got mad about her boyfriend situation, and she just started giving us a lot of trouble. She went to her dad and his family for a bit, but then they realized that she was also, causing some issues, so they put their
I'm
foot
going to
down.
object as a speculation, Your Honor, unless she was present.
Okay, sustained.
Yeah, let's, so how old is Taylor?
She's now 18.
18?
Yes.
And
Put it this way, I had a state police trooper stand in my front yard and say that I could spank her.
you can't.
I'm
tell
going to
us what-
object, Your Honor, to your
Sustained. Ms.
Okay.
Wheeler, you can't say what somebody else has told you.
Okay.
Have you had any difficulties with Dominic in the last year that required any physical restraining?
So he actually had been doing a lot better on his meds and whatnot recently. I don't know if it's because of puberty or what, but he definitely had some violent stuff, and he called the police and had involvement, and now we're going to do further evaluations on him. His doctor also again added a medication.
But have you personally had to restrain him in the last year?
Just for that recent incident, we had to call the police.
Okay. And is there a reason Mr. Bartel asked you a series of questions about you didn't file any motions to further restrict Mr. Baker's time or to remove his mom as the supervisor? Is there any reason why you didn't bring those motions?
I'm assuming he was trying. Well, okay, let me rephrase my answer here. Can you ask me again? I'll make sure.
Is there a reason why you didn't come to the court and ask the court to restrict Mr. Baker's parenting time further?
Because if I had, it was hearsay. Again, I wasn't directly there. and I understand that. I do know my years of experience with him. But to my knowledge, they were okay with their grandma.
And do you still believe that they're okay with their grandma?
Like I said, my concern is just directly because of her fear of him, that she might not protect them as much as she should. But
I'm
as
going to object, Your Honor. There is no testimony that she fears her son.
Sustained.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Mr. Bartel, any
No,
recross?
no redirect or cross on it, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. McNiff, next witness.
I have no further witnesses. I rest.
Okay,
And I am even faster than Mr. Stevens.
okay, great. Mr. Bartel, any rebuttal?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Looks like that concludes the proofs in this matter. So, Mr. Bartel, closing argument.
Yes, Your Honor. We've heard a lot of testimony today that is pretty diametrically opposite of each other. It's disappointing and it's sad, and unfortunately, this is what the court has to deal with. We had testimony from my client that he has participated in his healthy relationships classes. He has participated in it's court mandated, obviously, probation. He's had no issues on probation. There has been no evidence to controvert that. There has been no evidence to controvert that he's not engaged in his healthy relationships classes and has learned stuff from his classes, except for his ex, I guess, and I'll get to that in a second as to her testimony, I guess, here today. But the testimony overwhelmingly from my client, the supervisor, actually both supervisors, meaning my client's mother and grandmother, show the close relationship that my client has with the 4 children. Everything that he does for the children, and I'm not going to list them all, the court heard it, that the children are attached to him. They want to see him more. They cry when they have to go home. In fact, Macy, they have to coax her out of the vehicle because she does not want to go home to plaintiff mother. We have heard all of this testimony as to Mr. Sweet. He was told by the court to provide a letter, an update letter, and he had provided it a while back. He indicated that what he saw during the supervised parenting time was appropriate. He thought that the children were close. And I understand where opposing counsel is going to say, well, we don't really know everything going on. We have 3 short time periods, an hour apiece. But let's not forget, these children showed true emotions. They weren't forced to get along with my client. They weren't forced to give them hugs. They weren't forced to have that connection with my client. Okay? Even if nothing inappropriate happened, as suggested by the other side. We also heard testimony from Mr. Sweet, who obviously has a wealth of knowledge and experience. In his opinion, he believes this 2-year period was long overdue. He had indicated if there's unsubstantiated third parties, such as my client's ex-girlfriend coming in and just saying a bunch of stuff, or Miss Wheeler, with all due respect, just saying a bunch of stuff, that, and this is how I took it, that should not really be given as much weight. At least what he saw here is that he didn't have any concerns about expanding his parenting time, including to have unsupervised parenting time. I think in this particular matter, Your Honor, we had testimony from Miss Wheeler in which she does not actually add anything of value in terms of firsthand knowledge since the last order was entered. She had indicated, I guess there were some messages from my client. My client had acknowledged some messages, but he has taken the steps to improve himself. He has admitted his wrongs. He has admitted his shortcomings. He has admitted he has worked at himself. I haven't heard that from one other person, one other party here, because everything obviously is my client's fault, right? Now, with regards to my client's ex-girlfriend, I don't know. I didn't find her quite believable. That's for the court to determine. I would just point out, Your Honor, we have someone who says basically my client's the worst person out there. She can't even think of one nice thing to say about him, period. Yes, she dated him, broke up with him, got back together with him, and here she is with a vengeance to come after him, is how I take it, Your Honor. I mean, she supposedly provided all this information to Miss Wheeler. Miss Wheeler had all this information a year ago. My client's beating the kids again. My client isn't really exercising parenting time. He's not really watching the kids. He's not doing this and that. I mean, just everything you can imagine just against my client. The worst in the world. No emotion. No emotion whatsoever. To change parenting time, limit it, seek additional, whatever may needs to be done to get some help here. It's not very credible when you have the ex of someone coming in who says, I had all these bruises on me too, and he was choking me out, and I told the police this. I had all this evidence, and then they didn't charge him. This court is very well aware that this prosecutor's office would have charged him. So I'm suggesting to this court that unsupervised parenting time is appropriate given all the testimony here today, especially if you give the weight to appropriately with what the witnesses indicated and the lack of credibility as to some witnesses, lack of information from other witnesses. And we would ask for my client's parenting time to be expanded. We think that standard parenting time at a minimum would be appropriate here, Your Honor, and for child support to be changed to reflect the change in parenting time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McNiff?
Your Honor, clearly my client is at a disadvantage as for the reason that she's not present in Mr. Baker's home. She can't see what's going on. The children are very small. We're talking, 8 to 4 years old. Even if she could rely on what they said, she shouldn't, and it would be hearsay. So she has no choice but to rely on what Ms. Harris and what Ms. Howard have testified with regard to the children. I don't think there's been any allegation that Mr. Baker has been beating the children. The allegation was that he spanked Tessa. Tessa is very small. She's a little girl. We would prefer that there not be any corporal discipline. We don't feel like that's appropriate, especially with the tender ages of these children. Tessa's 3. There should be absolutely no reason why that type of discipline is necessary, or why one child would be singled out against the other. There certainly are discrepancies in the testimony here today. On the one hand, we have Ms. Harris saying, yeah, I didn't speak to my son for a month because he was not appropriate during the Christmas season of 2022. That was just over a year ago when Mr. Baker was throwing a fit because Ms. Wheeler and his mom determined that it was unsafe for the children to be driven around on icy roads in sub-zero temperatures. That was an appropriate adult decision for the two women to make. But Mr. Baker didn't like it, and so he tried to force a change. And that's been the problem with Mr. Baker for a long time. We understand he's going to this class. He's going to this class not because he wanted to go, but because he was court ordered to go because he had a conviction for domestic violence. Ms. Howard testified he complains about the class. Well, of course, he's going to tell this court that he's invested, that he enjoys the class, that he's learning things. He's complaining to his girlfriend, on the other hand, that it's a pain to go to it. He doesn't like to go. He doesn't have the money to go. He doesn't want to do that. Mr. Baker testified that he doesn't drink. He used to use marijuana, he doesn't use marijuana anymore. His girlfriend said, yeah, New Year's Eve, not that long ago, we had two-fifths of alcohol, which is a lot of alcohol for two people to consume. She indicated that he was drinking it with her. She indicated that not so long ago, in January of this year, he was smoking marijuana. Your Honor, I understand people drinking on New Year's Eve if that's what they want to do and the children aren't around and they're not driving. That shouldn't be a problem. The same with marijuana. If two adults want to smoke marijuana and there are no children around, that's their choice. What I have an issue with is not telling the court the truth about it. Be honest about it. If that's what's happening, that's what's happening. But don't try to act as though there's no issue and that you're a saint if that's not quite the case. Just lay it all out so that the court can have the honest facts and make that determination. It wasn't that long ago that Ms. Howard testified that Mr. Baker was being violent with her, that he choked her, that he bruised her, that he hurt her. So and more recently, he was been mentally abusive and verbally abusive and blowing up her phone. Ms. Howard's testimony about the way Mr. Baker communicates is the same as Ms. Wheeler's testimony. And even Mr. Baker's mother indicates that he has a temper, he has a short temper, and that not that long ago, a year ago, she was struggling with his temper as well. While it's commendable that Mr. Baker is going to church, while it's commendable that he is working on himself, maybe he's not quite done yet on working on himself in order to take care of these poor little girls. 4 children for anyone would be difficult, would be frustrating, would require a lot of patience and a lot of work. Mr. Baker has a history of not being patient. And I would suggest to this court that we need a longer track record of him continuing to go to church, continuing with this class, continuing to hopefully abstain from alcohol and any other substances when he has the children. But Ms. Howard's testimony and Mr. Baker's testimony were diametrically opposed. And Ms. Wheeler's concern is only for the safety of the party's children. We would ask that because Mr. Baker continues to live with his mom and having his mom supervise this parenting time is not a hardship when she lives there, that would continue. We would also ask that the children be provided with beds so that they have an appropriate place to sleep when they are there for an overnight. If the court is going to order overnights, we would ask for a prohibition against physical discipline. We would ask that the court require the parties to communicate through either Our Family Wizard, or I believe there's a free app that is just as effective, but wouldn't be as burdensome financially on these parties, but that they communicate through an appropriate app that would monitor the tone and the frequency and who looks at messages and who responds to messages. But at this point, Your Honor, I think that it makes more sense to allow Mr. Baker to continue to do the work that he needs to do and that he says that he is doing in order to learn how to control his temper, control his tongue, make sure he's keeping his hands to himself and not using any substances that would exacerbate that temper. So we are opposed to the expansion of parenting time, and would ask that the current order stand and that Ms. Harris continue to supervise.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bartel, any additional argument?
Just real briefly, Your Honor, they keep saying not long ago. It was over a year ago for a lot of these things that they're mentioning, or 2 years ago. And as Bruce Sweet had indicated, it's long overdue in his opinion, his professional opinion. Second, I think it's very telling here. You never even heard in the closing argument, you never heard in direct testimony or otherwise from plaintiff, what are even the triggering events that allow Mr. Baker to get to unsupervised standard or whatever it may be, Your Honor. I think that's telling because they just want to drag this along. And a lot of it is just based upon hearsay, conjecture, and I'll give you that. His ex came in and she said there was not one good thing about my client, period. Yet that's the person she chose to date 2 different times. She wasn't believable at all. This was information that Miss Wheeler supposedly had. She did nothing at all. Your Honor, it is time that my client get the expanded parenting time here and unsupervised parenting time. Otherwise, this is going to go on for a number of years if Miss Wheeler has her choice, I guess.
Okay. Thank you. That will conclude the case in this matter, other than the ruling. In these particular matters, court will note that parenting time is provided for by the statute in MCL 722.27A, and the court will go through those factors in a moment and what the court has to look at. Obviously, the court has to look at pursuant to the statute, the best interest factors, which I will go through those as well. Court does note that in this particular case, it become apparent, as Mr. Bartell stated, that we did have some diametrically opposite testimony in this case, and credibility is always a consideration in any case. Oftentimes, the parties will allege that the other party or a witness is not truthful or was lying. Court has found, however, that inconsistencies do not necessarily mean that an individual has lied. Conflicting testimony can occur as a result of a witness's background, perception, bias, understanding, misunderstanding, or mistake. When inconsistencies do occur, the court will attempt to determine if they can be reconciled through other testimony or evidence. There really was, in this particular case, between the parties, there were no inconsistencies. There was no conflicting testimony. And I'll go through that in a moment as well, because as the plaintiff has stated, she's not had any contact with the defendant because she cut that off approximately 2 years ago. The only contact she had was some communication from him, I believe in January of 2023, when he broke up with Miss Howard. But there is no testimony from her as to the things that we would normally see in a case based upon someone, if they were to file a motion or something of that nature. In this case, as I go through the factors of the Child Custody Act, is under the best interest of the child test, the court has to look at, and I will look at first, is the first factor the court has to consider is the love, affection, emotional ties existing between the parties involved and the child. There's no doubt in this matter that, again, there's love, affection, and other emotional ties existing between both of the parties and the children. They do appear to have a good relationship with the children. There's been less testimony from the plaintiff to this fact, but I take that as that there's not been a dispute in this particular matter. The issue is whether, again, the defendant has that sort of a relationship. I do note, looking back at Mr. Sweet's report in this matter. Now, I note that that was some time ago, so the court doesn't give a lot of credence as to anything current, because Mr. Sweet has not had any current up-to-date communication or whatever, but he did state at that time, and at that time it was after the incident that apparently gave rise to the problem between the parties, and he stated at that time that Mr. Baker and his daughters are quite engaged with each other, talking plain, clearly enjoying the togetherness. He also testified that Mr. Baker has shown his affection to each of the girls while respecting their boundaries. The girls are equally affectionate of their father. Stated that Mr. Baker seems well connected with his children and they seem very comfortable with him. So the court takes that into consideration at that particular time. There's been testimony today from the defendant as to his relationship with the children, the affection shown by them towards him. When they, in fact, as his mother stated, that when they pick up the girls, she'll stand there and hold her arms out, and the girls run to the defendant rather than to her, and then they will kind of make a joke about that. But it shows that clearly they have that relationship with the defendant. It's also testified that, again, that there's a lot of hugs, a lot of I love yous, things of that nature between the children and him. Next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to give the children love, affection, guidance, and continuation of the education, raising them in a particular religion or creed. The testimony is that the defendant does go to the church that he went to when the parties were together, that the girls really like that they love going in church. They have been in various plays or programs in church, and it does appear that he has had the capacity and disposition to give them love, affection, and guidance through the testimony that they come to him when they have issues, that, again, he talks to them, that he explains things to them, and otherwise shows that guidance. There's been less testimony about the education, and that he believes that he has somehow been if you would, has been frozen out on that. But I will tell Mr. Baker, the statute does provide that you have a right to get any information from schools or doctors or whatever if you wish to do so. So just for future reference, you have a right to make that request and try to get that information. Next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to provide the children with food, clothing, medical care, and other remedial care, recognized in the place of medical care and material needs. The testimony of the defendant is that he has provided for that he has, in fact, provided clothing for them to the extent that when the children come, he takes the clothes that they came in, he launders those, he has those available to put them back into that when they go home, because he has all the clothes that he needs. He's also testified that he fixed them breakfast, lunch, and that his mother will fix the dinner, but he helps clean up, that he helps serve them. That is consistent with the testimony of his mother in this case. It is consistent with Miss Harris. It's consistent with the testimony of his grandmother as well, that observed, although she's been there less often, but she has observed that and she testified to that. So the court does believe that he's provided for those material needs. Next factor is length of time the child is living in a stable, satisfactory environment and desirability of maintaining continuity. Obviously, the defendant is residing with his mother. He's stating he's doing that as a result of economics, that he doesn't have the ability to leave that home, so there's no chance that that is going to change, and so the court is taking that into consideration. Next factor is the permanency of the family unit, the existing or proposed custodial home or homes. There doesn't seem to be any change in that. He did have a relationship with the ex-girlfriend who had testified in this particular matter, that she, in fact, testified that they had separated the last time back in January of 2023, and that they have not been together since that time. That's Miss Howard. There doesn't seem to be any other relationship ongoing or things of that nature, so the court's taking that into consideration. Next factor is the moral fitness of the parties involved. Not been a lot of testimony about this. The issue had come up, I guess, tangentially about the issue that came up with Dominic, that abuse situation that allowed, or I guess occurred and resulted in the parties separating at that point. Although the court would note that Miss Wheeler had testified that Dominic is a handful, and it appears that he is. He has had issues. He's been on medication. They've had other issues. He's had to change medication. And as she said, she's had to resort to physical, again, I want to say violence, but physical restraint, etc., or punishment on him as well. So the court is not putting as much stake in that as I think that the plaintiff would want based upon the history in this matter and reliance upon this particular situation. Next is the mental and physical health of the parties. There's been no testimony about any mental or physical health issues. Somewhat, I guess, from, again, Ms. Howard, and I'll address that in a moment. Next is the homeschool and community record. There's not been a lot of testimony on that issue as it relates to the defendant in this matter. Obviously, court did not interview the children, so there is no issue as it relates to the preference. Next factor is the willingness and ability of the parties to facilitate and encourage a close and continued parent-child relationship between the child and the other parent. It does appear that the plaintiff has done that. She's attempted to, again, expand the parenting time to a point where he wasn't entitled to overnights, and she expanded that in 2023, giving him substantial, she said, a lot of overnights. I think at one point she testified that it was 8, but it does appear that based upon the testimony of his mother in this matter, that there may have been more than that, as Ms. Harris testified about, again, about all the context that they had, and that the plaintiff had been willing to provide for that other particular parenting time. The next factor is domestic violence, regardless of whether violence was directed against or witnessed by the children. Not been a lot of testimony about that. There's been some testimony about the defendant engaging in name calling and that type of thing. There's been testimony about the matter with, again, with the girlfriend in this particular matter, and Ms. Howard's testimony about some domestic violence, which I'll address in a moment. Next is any other relevant facts to the particular dispute. Only thing the court notes as relevant is obviously the defendant has in his custody Jasmine, a child from another relationship. And again, there was testimony about the relationship between all of the girls and Jasmine and how they have a good relationship with her. And so the court is taking that into consideration. But obviously in Ms. Wheeler's situation, she has 2 children in her custody that the girls have a relationship with as well. So I am taking all of that into consideration and considering the issue of parenting time. In this matter, the court has to look at, again, the factors as whether there's any special circumstances or need of the children. In this case, there's been no testimony about any special need of the children. Next factor is whether they're less than 1. That's not applicable in this case. The next factor is, again, the likelihood of abuse or neglect of a child during parenting time. Again, there's been no testimony about that, save it might be from Ms. Howard. And again, I'll address her testimony in just a moment. Next factor is the likelihood of abuse of a parent during the exercise of parenting time. Well, Ms. Wheeler has stated that in the last 2 years, she's not had any contact with the defendant during the parenting time exchanges, and therefore that doesn't exist in this particular matter. Next factor is the inconvenience or burdensome impact of travel. That it's for approximately an hour when they do the transportation. The defendant is doing that transportation. The plaintiff is not, again, contributing to that. But again, there's instances where the children have to travel for more than an hour, and that is not burdensome in the other cases that the court's well aware of. Next is whether the parent reasonably expected to exercise court-ordered parenting time. The court does believe that based upon the testimony that the defendant would exercise his ordered parenting time. There'd been some testimony about, well, that he didn't call and that she would have given him extra time, but he didn't ask for the extra time. But again, that's somewhat a result of the lack of a relationship between the parties in this particular matter, their inability to communicate. Next factor is whether the parent frequently failed to exercise parenting time. That has not occurred in this matter, and the court has not heard any testimony or evidence of that. Next is threatened or actual detention of the child. There's been no testimony about that. Next, any other relevant factors in the particular case. The court does believe that there are other relevant factors in this case. Those relevant factors were testified that in this particular matter that the court is considering that the defendant has been through, again, court ordered that he has been through the classes, not all of them, but 20 tomorrow, as he said, tomorrow will be 20 of the 26 classes through the healthy relationships classes that he's taken in this particular matter. The court doesn't look at just his testimony about what happened in regard to these classes. The court will note that, again, the individuals that had testified, meaning his mother, Paula Harris, she had testified that she has never seen defendant put the children in any danger, that she has seen a lot of improvement in the defendant from these classes. Noted that when instances would occur where he would normally get upset and go off, that he will take a step back, he walks away, that he would initially be upset in those instances, and he did not demonstrate that. In this case, she mentioned some situations involving her husband where there have been some situations with the defendant and he's walked away. The court would note that the testimony of Ms. Howard in this case is that, oh, he's violent, he's this, he's that. But again, she's testified that she hasn't had the relationship with him in 2023 after they separated. And as a result, the court is not putting a lot of weight in that because, again, he was not he'd not engaged in many of those classes when Ms. Howard had testified about, again, the things that she claims that he had done. Court does believe, in looking at that the court does believe that the defendant has been invested in the classes, notwithstanding the arguments of counsel or whatever, but he was able to demonstrate through his testimony some specific instances where he handled them differently, specific instances on things that he had learned in the classes, in the, I guess, the presentation he had to make in the class, and it shows that he has been invested in that. And so the court's taking all that into consideration. I want to address, again, Ms. Howard's testimony because it's obviously diametrically opposed to everything else that the court heard in this case. In this case, she's talked about, again, physical violence, anger issues as well, that she quite frankly testified about all the testimony that every other witness has given, and in a diametrically opposed position. Testified that the defendant didn't do any cooking, testified he didn't clean up, he didn't do any laundry, that in fact he would get upset when the kids would go, daddy, 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 etc. That's contrary to all of the other testimony we've heard from the other witnesses. She testified, well, the kids will want to sit on his lap. Clearly, she even acknowledged, I think indirectly, through that they would want to get up on his lap and sit, that they have a close bond and relationship with him. However, he would push them off, as she said. He'd never read to them. He'd never have movies with them. On one occasion, he did play Legos with one of the kids. And she did acknowledge as well that on a couple of occasions that the children didn't want to go back to the plaintiffs. Again, I think contrary to what she was attempting to do, that paint the defendant in the most and worst situation that she could, some of these instances, I guess, seep through to show that that again, he did have the relationship with his children that she did not want to acknowledge. She testified she was the one that sought out the plaintiff, that she was the one that was willing to testify. And as Mr. Bartell points out, she said she could not say anything nice about the defendant, not one thing. And that's surprising because the court's in the past, heard some very horrific instances and cases. And when that happens, the party at least has something that they can state in, I guess you say, as a benefit of the party or as a positive quality. But Ms. Howard had no good things or anything to say well about Mr. Baker. I think when I look at the pleadings in this matter, as well as the way that the proofs went, that it did appear that the plaintiff did take at face value all of the testimony of Ms. Howard in this matter. And although Ms. Howard basically told a litany of bad acts and bad behavior on the part of the defendant, that she related that to Ms. Wheeler a year ago, Ms. Wheeler didn't take any action. As response to questioning from Mr. Bartell, that she didn't, I'll go specifically. She didn't file to change the supervisor in the last 2 years. She didn't file a motion to change parenting time. She didn't file a motion for counseling. During that time, she agreed to expand the parenting time. She agreed to go to overnight parenting time. And she had testified she didn't know if defendant had improved in the last 2 years in this particular case. So clear when I look at this that she had no knowledge in this matter for either filing anything or responding, that she was simply relying upon Ms. Howard. Quite frankly, when I look at the testimony of Ms. Howard, the court has serious concerns and for the, I guess you say, the again, the truthfulness of that particular testimony, or whether it is simply as a result of a scorned ex-girlfriend, or in this particular matter, whether she is simply, again, doing it in a way to, again, to hurt Mr. Baker. I don't know, but based upon her testimony and all the other testimony, and her testimony does not square with any of the other testimony that the court's heard today, that quite frankly, I question how credible that is. And as a result, the court's not giving substantial consideration to that, especially in view of the fact that Ms. Howard stated that when the parties broke up, that defendant got violent with her, that she apparently had marks, that she'd taken pictures, as she stated. She told the police that, and in fact, nothing has occurred in this case. That is inconsistent with everything the court hears in these particular matters and what the police and the prosecutor will do in this matter, and they have not taken any action. So the court, again, that makes Ms. Howard's testimony very suspect in this particular case. In this matter, the court first note that the parties do not have any communication. So the court is going to order that the parties would communicate through Our Family Wizard or some other free app as may be available to them. I will let both of the parties know that in those apps, they keep communication that is available to the court. So if either party is going to go off against the other party, recognize some future date, the court will get that information and that communication, and the court will use that in the event that it's necessary as to some future, relief requested in this particular case. Court will order that the defendant would continue with his healthy relationships class, which I know is a condition of his probation, so I have to. The court will order that the defendant would provide the plaintiff with a certificate or proof of completion of that healthy relationships class. Can do that through Ms. McNiff's office. And if there is not, then if there's not that, the court would also order that he would provide proof of successful completion of probation through Ms. McNiff's office. Obviously, if there's no certificate or any other thing as it relates to the healthy relationships class and having successfully completed that successful completion of probation would infer that in fact he has done everything he needed to do to get that successful completion. Court would also order in this matter well, I'll get into that as to what the court believes appropriate for parenting time. In this matter, the court does believe that the defendant has met his burden to, again, expand the parenting time in this matter and to eliminate the necessity for supervision. I'm doing that because he is residing with his mother, with the stepfather, and it does appear that he's going to be doing that for some time. And as a result, indirectly or directly, again, they're going to be there to provide assistance and supervision, even though the court is not ordering it at this point. The court does believe that based upon his improvement personally, that in fact it's appropriate at this time that the court would in fact eliminate that particular restriction. Court is saying that, I'll tell you that Mr. Baker, it's not just because I've eliminated doesn't mean that it can't go back on at some point in the future, should it be necessary. And I would assume that Ms. Wheeler would in fact file a petition should it be necessary, and hopefully that doesn't come back before me. I think that the insights you've gained through the healthy relationships classes has helped you to maybe eliminate the need for that in this case. The court does believe that it is appropriate in this matter to expand the parenting time pursuant to MCL 722.27A. The court will expand the parenting time to standard parenting time, alternating weekends, Friday through Sunday, midweek, alternating holidays, alternating spring break, half the Christmas, half the summer vacation period. And so the court will expand it in that regard. As a result, there will be a necessity that, again, there be a recalculation of child support in this matter with the change in the days. The testimony was, I think, of Mr. Baker, and I didn't find it offhand with that he was now making $23.50 per hour. That he testified that his hours are less, but things are getting better. The court is going to calculate that based on a full-time 40-hour week. The testimony of Ms. Wheeler is that her work schedule is a little bit less as well, that she's making, I believe it was $18.10 per hour. The court will consider that based upon a 40-hour work week as well. The only thing else the court would state in this matter is that Mr. Baker, obviously, when you're going to have the children sufficiently more time, the court understands when you had them for a limited period of time, but now that it's a more standard time, then the kids need to have their own bedroom and need to have their own bed. So you're going to have to work on that. The court's not going to put a time limit, but you should use all dispatch to make sure that that gets done, because again, when you had them supervised for a matter of hours, it wasn't that big of a deal, and even on an overnight basis. But now, as you have them longer, it is going to be a big deal. And if in fact you don't make that improvement, the court may consider changing the parenting time back to less hours and less overnights if that doesn't happen. So I'll just leave it up to you to make sure that it does. If not, I'm certain Ms. Wheeler can bring the matter back in at that time. With that, I think that addresses all the things that the court has to. I'll ask Mr. Bartel, is there anything else you believe the court has failed to address or needs to before we conclude?
No, I just want clarification on that last thing. Do all 4 children have to have their own bedroom, or just
No.
that they have appropriate beds?
That
Sufficient.
they have appropriate bed.
Okay,
And in a particular bedroom, not in the living
Okay.
room, hallway, or things like that. I assume that the storage room that they could put bunk beds in, they could get all 4 girls because they're girls. I don't have the concerns there. So we'll just leave it up to that, and hopefully that takes care of it.
okay, thank you.
Anything else,
Nothing
Mr.
further.
Bartel?
No, nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Ms. McNiff, is there anything you believe the court has failed to address or needs to before we conclude?
No, Your Honor, I think you've covered everything.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bartel, I ask that you would prepare the appropriate orders, submit them to the front of the court for approval, and then submit them to the court.
Okay, I will, thank you.
The court will conclude this matter at 2:48 p.m. Best of luck. I hope everything works out for both of you. I hope that we, again, get this matter moving forward in a more amiable fashion. And I hope that the court continues to see progress in the event that, well, I hope that both of you see more progress, and hopefully the court doesn't see any progress, and hopefully you're not back before the court. But best of luck to both of you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Your
Thank
Honor.
you.